Hey guys, welcome back. This is a story about what if Naruto went to the world of One Piece. Naruto's age has passed him by as his time is over. Now he attempts to seek out a place for himself in the new world, and it's bigger than he ever figured it to be. Will be epic in length. Before we start, thank you for all of the support, it really means a lot to me. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and leave a like. You can suggest a Naruto fanfiction with a link in the comments if you want me to read it. And check the description for the creator of this great fanfic and support them for making this fanfic. So let's start. Chapter 10. Greetings from Alabasta. Naruto stared at the person hanging off of Karu, who just so happened to be the bait that the others were fishing with. How do you catch an Okama? Actually, never mind. I guess it's just one of those mysteries that I'm better off not knowing. The Okama in question was hanging on tightly to Karu. How did I get stuck on this weird giant duck? Was the cry of alarm from the mystery person before he fell back into the water, seemingly unable to swim. After a short panic to get the person out of the water, they all sat on the deck of the ship as the cross-dressing man bowed to them. Thank you all, you wonderful people. I was saved by a group of pirates that I don't even know. I am in your debt. Might I trouble you for a warm cup of soup? No. Was the unanimous cry of everyone else. We're hungry too. Naruto, Soren, and Nojiko didn't add in on that last part because they weren't hungry, but they shut up whenever the topic of food came up for good reason. After knowing how much Luffy could eat single-handedly, it was for the best that he didn't know that they had a basically fully stocked pantry on their ship, so it was best to act as if they were depleted of provisions as well. The man was relatively tall with short black hair and makeup on and wore blue, flamboyant ballerina clothes underneath a pink overcoat with a strange two-headed swan figure on his back. He turned his attention to Vivi, who was standing on a balcony above everyone else. Ooh, well, aren't you cute? I'd like to gobble you right up. Vivi cringed. Ah, what a weirdo. Luffy chuckled. So you can't swim either, just like me? Yes. The man responded. I ate a devil fruit. Usopp looked at the man in interest. Really? What kind did you eat? The man looked around. Well, I have to wait for my ship to come back anyway, so I might as well put on a show. He stood up and spoke in an empowered voice. Right. This is my power. He ran out and palmed Luffy's face, sending him flying backwards. Luffy's crew cried out in surprise and Zoro made to grab his swords until the mystery man spoke up to get them to stop. Wait. I told you this was my power. Zoro stopped moving to attack out of sheer surprise. What? Your face. What are you? This is my show. The man now had Luffy's face instead of his own. Are you surprised? They look identical. Nami and Usopp called out. Naruto raised an eyebrow. I can do that too. Soren rolled his eyes. Of course you can. What can't you do it? Naruto grinned. I don't know yet. I've yet to find out. You'll know when I do. If you touch my left hand, I go back to normal. The man said, turning his face back to normal after doing so. That's the power of my main no am I. He walked down a line and touched everyone's face. I don't have to punch you to do it. That little aspect somewhat pissed Luffy off. But if I just touch your face with my right hand, I can imitate anyone just like this. He turned into Zoro, Usopp, Chopper, and Nami. The voice and even the physique are the same. Nami noticed. I can copy your bodies too. He said in Nami's form as he opened his clothing to show off her body. All of the men stared in shock until Nami punched the man in the face angrily, turning him back to normal. That's enough of that. Soren had a miv grin on his face. That was so awesome. Naruto's face mirrored his own. You're telling me? Ignoring the glare he was getting from Nojiko, he blinked in realization. Wait, that was technically a guy. Which means that technically we were just flashed by a dude, and we liked it. Naruto and Soren looked at one another with wide, horrified eyes before running towards the edge of the ship to puke over it. The new arrival on the ship recovered from Nami's punch quickly. I'm sorry, but that's all I can show you right now. Ignoring the two vomiting men at the edge of the ship being watched by Nojiko with a sweat drop on her head, Chopper, Luffy, and Usopp beckoned him to continue, which he gleefully agreed to. I've got a perfect memory. I remember every single face I've ever touched. He said while shifting through faces. Although when he stopped on the face of a middle-aged bearded man, it got a reaction of shock out of Vivi. The show and tell regressed into Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper dancing with the man. Nami watched while palming her face. Someone killed him. Naruto had finished throwing up and walked over to her. Do you have enough money to pay for it? he quipped before turning out towards the ocean and seeing a ship coming their way. Hey, whose ship is that? Is it the time already? That's too bad. The man asked as he jumped up onto the balcony railing of the Going Merry. Don't be sad, my babies. Separation is inevitable. Just never forget me. He then gave everyone a thumbs up and a shining smile that gave Naruto a flashback. Time means nothing to true friendship. He then jumped onto his own ship. Let's go, my lovelies. Yes sir, Mr. Tuban Clay-sama. Mr. Huban, what now? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. Luffy seemed to ignore that little part of the farewell as he bid Bon Clay a fond farewell. Until the ship got out of sight and then it hit everyone else just what had happened, Mr. 2. Vivi elaborated, that was Mr. 2 Bon Clay. Luffy looked over at her. Vivi, didn't you recognize his face? She looked down in a dejected fashion. No, I've never met Mr. 2 or the Mr. 1 pair. I didn't know that he had any powers either. I did hear rumors though about how he was a huge Okama, talked like an Okama, wore a swan coat that said, Okama Way, on the back. Naruto sweet dropped. And people say I forget important things all the time. Noji-chan, can you shoot him really quick for me? Nojiko shrugged. All I've got on me are my pistols, Naruto-kun. I can't reach that far with these. My rifle is on our ship. Crap. Naruto said with a frown. If Miss Valentine was here she would have been able to ID him right off the bat and save us the trouble of wondering if he knew who we all were or not. Although if she had been there she might have gotten them all discovered. Mr. 2 didn't seem to know who any of them were. But Nojiko didn't kill those spies from before, she just defeated them. Naruto had no doubt that they went right back to Crocodile as soon as they were able. Vivi held her face in despair. One of the faces he showed from his memory was the face of my father. What in the world would he need my father's face to do? Naruto pondered. Well, apparently Baroque works is trying to throw your country into anarchy. Doing anything at all with your dad's face since he's a king would probably cause any number of problems to come up. That's somewhat troubling. Nami walked over to Vivi. Well, if he uses his memory to turn into one of us we won't be able to trust each other, that is assuming that he ever finds out that we're enemies. Naruto frowned at the face that Vivi was making. She was really concerned about what was going on with her country. Well, as long as he and everyone else were there was no way that this nation was going to fall, not if any of them had anything to say about it. Naruto jumped ships back to his own and headed inside where he found Yosaku asleep on his couch and Miss Valentine reading a newspaper from her own seat. Where she got the newspaper he wasn't sure, but that was neither here nor there. Hey, did you all miss what just happened on the Going Merry? Miss Valentine lowered her paper and looked at him inquisitively. Pretty much. Is it that big of a deal? Naruto pushed Yosaku off of the couch and sat down on it. You tell me. He started as he placed his feet up on Yosaku's still sleeping body. Is Mr. 2 showing up on the Straw Hats ship and touching their faces really that big of a deal to you? Miss Valentine looked at him in shock and a little bit of fear. He was here. Naruto nodded. Yeah. I'm surprised that you didn't hear it or find out about it. The guy was pretty loud. I don't think I'll ever forget this run-in either. I'll be having nightmares every time I start to dream about Nami-chan for the next 10 years. He caught her strange look. Please don't ask. I don't want to relive it. If you must know, ask Soren when he gets here. I have no problems with him puking. Actually I do, since it would probably burn through the ship. So, she started with a grin on her face. You have dreams about the Nami girl, do you? Naruto returned her grin. Sure do. I also have them about Noji-chan and you too, so don't feel left out. You're right there in the mix of my mind. Congratulations. Miss Valentine sputtered nonsensically before giving Naruto a stern look. You're a real pervert. Nope. Naruto said as he readjusted his feet. I'm just honest. And honestly, you're wow. And don't think clown shoes here. He then pointed down to Yosaku. And every other guy on this ship don't think somewhat the same way. That's normal. Now if I were hearing you about it, that would make me a pervert. But me, I'm simply willing to look and speculate. Naruto then teasingly gave her a once-over, and speculate I shall. Shaking her head and returning to reading her newspaper, Miss Valentine sighed and spoke to Naruto chittingly. Watch yourself, Mr. Captain. After you deal with Baroque works I don't have to stay here anymore. Naruto scoffed. You don't have to stay here now. You were the one that said that Crocodile was going to kill you, so you decided to come with us. Miss Valentine stuck her tongue out at Naruto over her paper and went back to reading. Uzumaki. Soren yelled out as he came inside the common area, "We've got trouble." Naruto stood up with a questioning look on his face. What kind of trouble? Is it the fun kind of trouble or the annoying kind of trouble that makes me want to hit something repeatedly, and very hard for being stupid? Soren stared at him blankly for a moment. What kind of trouble qualifies as the rubber brat running away from our ships before we were all fully docked because he smelled food in the port town we stopped in? Naruto sighed. The second kind. Naruto's shoulders slumped as he walked out onto deck while speaking to Miss Valentine. Tell everyone to stick with the straw hats until we come back, okay? Getting an okay sign from Miss Valentine, he put a hand on Soren's shoulder and used Shunshin no Jutsu to move from the ship to land. Let's see, Soren said as they leapt along the rooftops of the town searching for Luffy. If I were a half-wit with a one-track mind and an empty stomach, where would I be? Naruto pointed down. How about down there with the trail that leads through the walls of about 4 different buildings? Naruto took a sniff of the air, although in his defense, the smell of the restaurant's food is great. I wonder if this place has ramen. The two men jumped down and walked through the holes in the walls that ended with them in the restaurant in question. Hey, have you guys seen a goofy kid in a straw hat? He probably was the one that did this to the wall. The people inside pointed outside warily. Soren sighed. He's already into something, isn't he? Naruto nodded. More than likely. And he's running. Luffy never runs, so this must be something pretty big. Tashigi. Assemble all of the men and have them comb every corner of the town for his crew. Naruto frowned at the sound of that voice. If he was after Luffy, then one of them would have to go and fight him. By one of them he meant him himself, since he wasn't sure what good acid would do against smoke. Therefore it was up to him to deal with Smoker once again. He needed to come up with a more permanent way to deal with the bastard, because blowing him away when he turned to smoke wasn't going to do the trick every time. Soren. Naruto said. Yes. Soren asked. You remember that little tick you have when it comes to Marines? Naruto hinted. Soren slowly started grinning. I might. As long as you make sure they don't see any of the straw hats or our own crew, feel free to go nuts. Naruto said before leaping back atop the rooftops. Soren let a manic grin cross his features as he also took to the rooftops, albeit in a different direction, to tail Tashigi and find all of the Marines she had run off to round up. Sanji had bought disguises in the town for them all to wear as they crossed the desert towards Alabasta's capital city incognito. For the men they consisted of generally cloaks and turbans, and for the females of the group, it consisted of belly dancer outfits. Nojiko sweet-dropped as she looked herself over in her new clothes. Naruto-kun would either punch Sanji directly in the face, or shake his hand vigorously for convincing us to actually go through with wearing this stuff. Miss Valentine nodded as Sanji fawned over all of the women traveling in the party until Agaram made to restrain him for getting too fresh with Vivi. I'd lean more towards the latter or some unholy combination of the two options. Nami turned to Vivi. So what's the plan? Where are we going, Vivi? Well, first and foremost I want to stop the rebellion. Vivi started. We don't know when they might rise up and cause needless bloodshed. The base of the rebels where the leader lives is an oasis town called Yuba. To go there we need. She was cut off from speaking by Zoro grabbing her arm. Wait, hide, he said. Getting everyone to take refuge inside a ruined building as a group of Marines ran near them. What are Marines doing here? He then saw who was being chased by them and that they were coming this way. Zoro. Luffy called out. There's the Straw Hat crew. One of the Marines called out. Zoro paled. Why the didn't you come and find us after you lost them, you idiot? Get back, men. Smoker called out as he rushed ahead of the regular soldiers. You're not getting away, Strafut. Hawaito Buro, white blow. He swung out a hard stream of smoke to blast Luffy hard. Futen. Datapa wind release. Great breakthrough. A rough wind blasted the smoke away from Luffy and threw Smoker backwards along with the rest of his men. Naruto stood in the middle of the street with his arms crossed over his chest. Oh, there, Smoker. Remember me? Smoker was able to catch himself as the rest of his men were blown further down the street and stood up straight to face Naruto. Uzumaki, how good of you to join us. I've been meaning to pay you back for Logatown. I'll put you down and then go after Straw Hat next. Naruto smirked. For that plan of action to work you still need to get past me. And I don't think you have what it takes to pull that little miracle off. He dropped into a combat stance. Come on men. One of the misplaced Marines shouted as he reached his feet. We can't just leave Captain Smoker all on his own like this, let's go back him up. Those were his last coherent words before a loogie hit him in the forehead and started burning its way through, much to the horror of the man and all of the men around him. After a moment of panic and painful screams, he dropped to the ground motionlessly. That's funny, because my captain told me to do whatever I had to do to keep the rest of you out of the way. Soren said from the rooftop he had spit from. Smoke from his acid flying into the air for intimidation tactics covered his body. S for all of you. He jumped off of the roof and landed in the street in front of them all. Another Marine spoke up and drew a cuddle. You're going to pay for that, you freak. We won't let a monster like you have your way. Soren shrugged. Well, come on then. Don't disappoint me now. Upon his challenge, all of the Marines drew their own weapons and attempted to charge at him. As they got close and began swinging their blades at him, Soren effortlessly danced through their clumsy attacks with a scowl on his face. You guys are all so weak that it's almost a waste of effort for me to kill you. He got directly into the middle of the fray and built up power for a moment. Ibi no Bakahatsu, rot explosion. He expelled acid from his body in a fine misty spray in all directions, coating all of the men that had been attacking him in the deadly fluid. Soren smiled happily as the men all dropped to the ground screaming in pain as the acid worked over their bodies, melting through their clothing and skin. Enjoy the tingling, burning sensation that goes with having your bodies liquefy. He pulled the flask from his belt and walked away as he drank heartily. Before he could walk too far, he saw a woman with black hair and glees standing in front of him with a katana drawn. He sighed to himself, great, another woman to fight. Naruto stared at Smoker while keeping in his stance. Luffy. He called out to the straw hat wearing boy, get everybody moving. I'll catch up later, I'm the only one of us that can handle him right now. Luffy grinned to Naruto, thanks Naruto. Nami called back to him as they began running away, Naruto-kun, we're heading to. Naruto turned around swiftly, waving his hands in an aggressive, don't say it so loudly Nami-chan. On the off chance that I can't stop this guy, it would be better if he didn't know exactly where you were trying to go. As he had his back turned, he looked down curiously when found himself covered in smoke clouds. Oh, you cheating son of a bitch. Naruto cried out as he found himself slung down the street into a building by Smoker. Naruto-kun. Nojiko cried out as everyone watched Naruto get whipped into a wall by Smoker with destructive force. Naruto picked himself out of the rubble and took off his sage coat before throwing it attached to a kunai at the retreating Straw Hat and Foxhound pirates. Take care of that for me until I get back to you. Nojiko picked up the coat and looked at it forlornly before turning back to Naruto. Are you sure you'll come back? Naruto grinned at her, still picking small pieces of building out of his hair. I'll be right behind you. He finished with a wink. Nojiko gave him a small smile before continuing on with everyone else. So that girl is an accomplice of yours, or is she a lover? Smoker asked. I guess I'll just have to capture her too. It's too bad, a pretty thing like that won't last too long and impel down. Naruto gave Smoker a cold glare before suddenly disappearing from his view in a gust of wind. Smoker looked around for any sign of Naruto before he saw a blurry fist and felt a sharp pain in his face that sent him flying into another building. Smoker slowly pulled himself out, growling lowly at Naruto, who was standing where he had just been a moment ago. I didn't even see him moving or sense him coming. Naruto simply kept his glare on him. You can threaten me, you can try to attack me, you can say anything you like about me. I don't care. But you threaten anyone that is close or precious to me just out of mere association with me and I will make your life a living. I've already killed one of your marine captains for doing it, don't make me kill you too. Smoker wiped the blood from his. You're a notorious pirate that goes against the laws set up by the world government. You've killed Marines in cold blood. Naruto scoffed. It wasn't really in cold blood. And those pathetic excuses for human beings. Sometimes I can see why Soren likes killing you all so much. You're different from that Nezumi prick. You actually have real strength and you actually use it to protect. I respect you for that. Have all of the problems with me that you want, I don't care. Hunt me down, chase me all over the globe, I'll be okay with that. Honestly, it actually sounds pretty fun. However, the second you put someone else into it that has nothing to with me being an outlaw, or a pirate, or whatever the buzzword is these days for people that want to do what they want in life. I will hurt you badly, and I will let you know what a terrible mistake it was for you to even think that doing that was a good idea. Hawaito Auto, white out. Smoker attacked Naruto again with a wave of clouds from his arms. Naruto jumped onto the roof of a nearby building to dodge the attack and threw a kunai at Smoker that just ped through his body. What an obnoxious power. I can't even hurt you as long as you can do that. Naruto ran along the rooftops and jumped off as another blast of smoke hit nearby. While he was hanging in the air, Smoker turned his entire body into a dense cloud of smoke and sent himself at Naruto. Hawaito Supauku, white spark. The cloud engulfed Naruto's body, bringing a smirk to Smoker's disembodied face until he noticed that he hadn't grabbed a person, but a large urn with a piece of paper stuck to it, and the piece of paper seemed to be burning down with the sound of a lit fuse. Smoker attempted to throw the urn away, but he had noticed it too fast and the planted paper bomb exploded right on him, taking out half of the town block with the force of the blast. The sound of the explosion brought a smirk to Soren's face as he continued to look out at the girl brandishing a sword against him. You really don't want to do that. I have no problems turning you into a puddle just so you know. Tashigi glared at him. You're a monster. Soren raised an eyebrow. And you're a. You got any other useless names to call me? A growl came from her throat. I don't even want to know how a criminal like you can justify yourself for the things that you do. Soren frowned. Good, because I wasn't going to try to. I guess you could call me somewhat selfish. Those guys probably had families. Some of them might have actually had honorable reasons for joining up with the Marines, but personally, to me, once they put those uniforms on, they chose their side. The Marines showed me no mercy when I was weak and defenseless, so they'll get it right back now that I can actually do something about them. No mercy for the merciless. Tashigi got herself ready to attack him. In the name of the world government and by the authority of the Marines, you are under arrest. Soren started laughing. Under arrest? You think you can beat me? You actually think you can take me alive? Let me show you what I do to Marines that think they have a chance at taking me down. Soren came at her straightforward and swiftly. Tashigi attempted a sword thrust to impale him, but Soren moved to the side and smacked the side of her katana hard, throwing her off balance. He then proceeded to follow up with his bare hands. Jutora Mui 10 Tiger's Fury. He hit her in the body with 10 high-speed palm strikes that sent her flying backwards. Tashigi coughed up blood and pulled herself to her feet only to catch a shin to the side from Soren that sent her into a shop, taking out the front window. Soren simply walked through the front door and motioned with his head to the frightened shopkeeper to leave. While his attention was diverted, Tashigi took a wide swing at him to try cutting him in half at the waist. Soren saw it coming at the last second and jumped into the air, grabbing onto the light fixture on the ceiling before descending with it and smashing it over her head, sending her back to the floor. Soren shook his head as he walked around her body. I'm not even using my powers right now. You see, normally I would have just turned you into a human slushie and kept on moving, but for some reason I feel the need to prove a point to you. If I killed you, you wouldn't learn anything, obviously, because you would be dead. He saw her place her hand back on her sword handle and stepped on the blade to keep her from doing anything more. Not all pirates are bad people. Soren said, looking down at her before taking on a thoughtful look. Well, I'm a bad person. There are absolutely no excuses for me. I'm a terrible person. But guys like the people on the Straw Hat crew and the other people on my crew are all good people. Sadly, as far as pirates go, they seem to be the minority, but it's a minority I want to preserve. Roronoa Zoro is not a good person. She cried as she tried to free her sword from under his foot. He tricked me into helping him obtain rare swords in Logatown. Soren raised an eyebrow. How? Did you ask who he was? Did he make you pay for them and then ditch you? I'm sorry, but Roronoa Zoro is not a bad person. He's a lazy bastard most of the time, but then again so is Uzumaki. Uzumaki is lazy. How can you possibly defend him? Tashigi inquired. It's well documented that he's just another marine murderer like you. Soren chuckled. You can't even compare him to me. He only killed like 15 tops. I've killed hundreds. Uzumaki only kills when someone tries to hurt the people around him or put them in danger. He's just one of those kinds of guys. Soren would have kept lecturing, but he found himself ensnared in iron shackles around his body. Oh, not this again. The familiar pink-haired woman that had fought him and Naruto when they first met walked into the ruined shop. Hina thanks you for holding him here. Smoker-kun is so impatient, not waiting for me to get a new crew, so mean. Tashigi adjusted the glaze on her face as she looked up. Captain Hina. Soren sighed. Haven't we been through this already, lady? You can't stop me. Ebi no haifu, rot skin. Soren secreted acid through his skin and melted the shackles on him before rushing at Hina, leaving Tashigi alone. Hina simply stood still when Soren took a tiger-style swing at her. He simply ped through her body and came out shackled once more. As Soren looked at himself with a tick mark on his head due to being ensnared again, Hina turned to Tashigi. Go to Smoker-kun. This one you cannot defeat right now, not as you are. Leave him to Hina. Tashigi nodded and put up her sword before leaving the shop. Soren eventually rolled his eyes and spit onto the shackles, enabling him to melt just enough of them to break out. It's funny how you said she can't beat me as she is, because you can't beat me either. Now if I recall our last little run-in, I was kicking your until Uzumaki decided to be a bastard and drench us in seawater so he could abduct me and get away. Hina smiled and nodded. Yes, that seems like the proper chain of events last time around for the most part. Hina suggests round 2. Soren smirked. Soren agrees. The Straw Hats and the remainders of the Foxhound pirates made it to their docked ships. Johnny and Yosaku were moving quickly to get the ship ready to leave with the time being bought for them. Yosaku finished extending the sail and climbed down to run over to the side of the ship to raise anchor. Are we really just going to leave Naruto, Aniki and Soren back in Nanohana? Miss Valentine frowned as she stayed on the side of the ship nearest the Going Merry so she could get word on when they were all ready to leave. He said that he would catch up. I have to believe that a guy like that wouldn't have said he was going to do something that he was incapable of pulling off. Johnny came from inside and ran up to her. So what the are we doing back on the ship? Miss Valentine looked at him. We can take the ships up the river a distance before we actually have to traverse the desert. That's where Naruto and Soren can catch us if they can move fast enough to get there and meet us. She looked up at the crow's nest and saw that Nojiko was simply staring back at the town. Nojiko, what's the matter? The girl up above shook her head as she kept looking at the town. The billowing clouds of smoke and then the huge explosion that tore out. They're tearing it apart. Naruto-kun and Soren fighting one another was bad enough. What's going to happen now that they're fighting together? Off of the ships, Vivi had stopped her duck from boarding. Karu, I have an important job that only you can do. She pulled out a letter and gave it to him. Go north to Alubarna and give this letter to my father. This will reveal Crocodile and Baroque Works conspiracy. Everything has been spelled out plain and clear. I will east him, princess. Said Agaram as he made his presence known. You will be safe with these people for the time being. I will go with Karu and tell your father that you are quite alive and with a group of powerful strong-willed people. Vivi gave him a smile and a short hug. Take care of Karu and yourself, Agaram. Now go tell my father that we can save this country. As he got onto Karu, she held on to the duck's face and looked at it. Be careful and conserve your water, okay? She got an affirmative quack in response before he took off, immediately drinking deeply from the water supply he had around his neck audibly. I said conserve your water. She yelled with a tick mark at the retreating duck. Naruto yelled as he found himself encircled by Smoker's smoke. The man couldn't really hurt him or anything at this point, but even when he had gotten sick of messing around with him, he couldn't do anything to blow him far enough away to get rid of him. Soren was still in the town somewhere fighting, and even if he wasn't, the buildings seemed way too easy for him to break. Using the jutsu he used in Logatown to end the fight would take out quite a few civilian casualties. Now you're done, Uzumaki. Smoker partially solidified and drew his jute before thrusting it at Naruto's chest. Naruto caught the tip of the weapon in the palm of his hand, legs buckling slightly under the force at which it came at him before he held his ground once more. Hey, you're pretty strong physically, aren't you? I think I'm starting to like you even more than I already did. Smoker growled when Naruto held his ground against his weapon. This weapon is tipped with sea stone. Even touching it with your bare hands the way you are should nullify your devil fruit powers and make you as weak as a kitten. Naruto grinned. Now whoever said that I even had devil fruit powers to start with, huh? I certainly never claimed to have any. You must have just Yumen, and you know what happens when you Yum right. You make an, that Uzumaki Naruto has to kick. Naruto used his free arm to chop through Smoker's wrists, turning them to smoke and placing the jute in his own hands. Naruto turned the weapon around and threw it javelin style at Smoker. His eyes widened as the seastone tip made impact with his chest, forcing the air and spit from his mouth with the impact that it made and sent him flying backwards into another building. Naruto grinned at finally dealing Smoker some actual damage for once and looked around at how much they had wrecked the place from the fight. Man, and this was a nice place before we got here. Oh well, I don't have to pay for it. The building that Smoker had been sent into had its roof blown off as his towering, smoking form angrily emerged from the top of it. Naruto took a whiff of the air as he saw Smoker come out. Did I throw you into the perfume store or something? Smoker let out a mib attack cry as he came at Naruto with his jute one more time, the rest of his body billowing around Naruto's body, entrapping him. Naruto grit his teeth angrily at being surrounded by his powers once more and pulled a summoning scroll from his back. He bit his thumb and smeared it down the open scroll. So you want to beat me into submission with a ingjut, huh? Well, if you wanted to duel, then you should have told me. In a puff of smoke, the bandaged, scaly, oversized sword that Naruto oftentimes had found himself wielding found its way into his hands. Samahata cut him into ribbons. Smoker's jute clashed with Naruto's odd blade. You know, if Tashigi could see you using this sword, she'd be dead set on finding some way to beat you and take it from you. Naruto smirked as they pushed against each other's weapon. Sorry, but I don't think she could use it even if I wasn't currently wielding it. Samahata is very selective about the company it keeps. It has a few prerequisites for anyone that wants to even touch the handle. This freaky looking thing? Smoker questioned. He was coming awfully close to biting through the cigars in his mouth from the effort he was exerting to keep force with the grinning blonde that didn't seem like he was having that much trouble holding him back anymore. What kind of requirements could this thing have? It's not a cursed blade, is it? Naruto frowned. That's not very nice. I would never call Samahata cursed, more like very picky about its users. Much to Smoker's surprise, the sword started vibrating and making disputing noises. Alright, sorry, geez. I thought picky was the nicest way to put it. How else would I explain that you like to on my chakra like a weaning baby whenever I pick you up? Are you talking to the sword? Smoker asked in disbelief before outrage took over. You're going to take me seriously, you? Naruto saw the smoke clouds closing in and reflexively panicked as he really didn't want to get thrown around like a rag doll like that again, even if he could take that kind of abuse for only Kami knows how long. Samahata sensed Naruto's alarm and tried to cut off the attack from what it could sense was the source. It stretched and bent around the weapon held by Smoker and dragged itself across his chest, actually shredding off skin from the man. Naruto watched Smoker fully reform in surprise and pull back as blood ran down his chest. What? Did that thing actually do me damage? Naruto looked at Samahata, who was purring appreciatively before smirking at Smoker. Well. It looks like Samahata likes the way you taste. Very rich with a special energy it hasn't tasted before. It's so used to eating my own kind that your own is like something of a delicacy to it. And it can actually hurt you. Naruto's smirk turned to a dark grin. Let's see how much of a beating you can take. Soren broke out of another set of iron shackles. You're really starting to piss me off, lady. Ibi no kawa, rot stream. Soren's cheeks puffed out before he fired a large stream of acid from his mouth at Hina. The woman leapt aside as the stream followed her, hitting half a dozen buildings and melting their walls right down. Soren was really beginning to get pissed off. She couldn't beat him. He was able to melt off her devil fruit originated restraints each time she was able to get them on him, but he couldn't close the distance and cut her to pieces with his acid-based hand-to-hand techniques or beat her senseless with them. Every time he laid a finger on her, he found himself ensnared once more. It was quite maddening to say the very least. When he switched to distance attacks, he found that she had evasive skill to go along with her stifling close-range powers. He couldn't pin her down and hit her with his acid attack. He would have just said it and saturated the area in some kind of widespread attack, but he was in the desert. Using his acid-based powers quickly ate through his bodily fluids, and he didn't want to be utterly useless at the conclusion of the battle, especially since the dry climate was sapping him of his fluids faster than usual. Since his stronger attacks utilized a higher amount of fluids from his body, would he have attempted something like what he actually desired to use to bring the fight to a close? He would more than likely take himself out and leave himself a sitting duck, maybe even weak enough for the Tashigi girl to finish off, wherever she was. Not to mention they would probably kill a whole lot of innocent people. He reached for the flask at his belt while Hina was at a distance and raised it up to his mouth only to curse to himself when he found that it was empty with the bottom of it cut out. That Tashigi girl must have gotten closer to him than he thought. Instead he pulled a small vial of yellow liquid from his pocket, he identified it to the crew as lemon juice, and ingested it for a small boost of acid potency and a basically minuscule amount of fluid replenishment. He looked around and noticed how much collateral damage he had caused by simply missing his target. Maybe Uzumaki has a point about how I shoot off attacks. I should train my aim with Nojiko after all of this is over. Hina frowned as she watched Soren look at her from a distance. This is dangerous. Hina is starting to run out of energy to deal with him. If Hina can't trap him, how is Hina supposed to win? Soren sighed before turning around and running off, forcing Hina, who had expected a fight to the death, to face fault. Where do you think you're going? Come back and fight with Hina. We aren't done yet. Soren didn't even turn around as he yelled back, why would I do that? At this point it's just a matter of who has more stamina, and I don't want to win like that. Killing you isn't that important. I'm certain that everyone else was able to get away while me and Uzumaki have been tearing this place to shreds, and that means my job is done. A fight to the death isn't going to benefit me right now. He gave her a two-fingered salute over his shoulder and jumped onto the still intact rooftops to search for Naruto. Smoker gasped in shock and pain as Samahata flailed around the defense he had tried putting up by lifting his jute and came down on his shoulder. Naruto dragged the sword downwards, shaving off the shoulder of his jacket and cutting into his shoulder. Naruto grinned as he placed Samahata over his shoulder. I still wish I could punch you in the face, but this is a very acceptable substitute for that. Smoker pulled himself to his feet once more, ignoring his injuries. Where did you get a seastone-coated weapon? Naruto looked at him strangely. Samahata isn't made of seastone. It's a blade and it's covered in scales. I don't really know why it can hit you, but right now I don't care. It certainly solves one of my problems. Smoker yelled at Naruto, if it isn't made of seastone or doesn't have seastone in its make, then how can it hit me? Naruto shrugged, if I know, but I don't care. Naruto saw Soren motioning to him from the corner of his eye atop a roof and turned back to Smoker. Well, I'd hate to literally cut and run, but it seems that's what I'm doing. Go pick up the town you made me destroy. You Uzumaki, this isn't over. Smoker moved towards him to attack again. Haoito Suppaku, White Spark. He charged at Naruto after turning his body into a dense cloud once more. Soren landed at Naruto's side. You know you messed up so much of this part of town, you can do something big to get rid of him, right? Naruto blinked at Soren. No. I kind of forgot that all of the people probably evacuated this place by now after all of the stuff we destroyed. Alright then. Naruto rolled through hand signs. Fuden, Tatsumaki Sanden Wind Release, Twister Swow. Naruto spat out a MIV tornado that had Soren's eyes widen at seeing a human being actually spit out an actual tornado. It started pulling in the debris around it, ing chunks of the destroyed buildings and the sandy landscape surrounding the village into it. Smoker's smoke-comprised body once again found itself being drawn into the forceful gale winds of the tornado created by Naruto's jutsu. Not again. It. Captain Smoker. Tashigi yelled from behind sturdy cover as she saw his smoky frame get into the twister. Naruto shrugged as he watched the tornado stay in place and continue spinning before turning around and walking away. Soren followed closely behind and pointed his thumb back towards the scene they had just left. What the was that? Naruto looked at Soren. Oh, that's how I got rid of him last time. I just pumped way more chakra into the jutsu this time so that it would take a while for him to disperse into the air, and even after that it'll be a while before he can get his bearings enough to try and search for us. He finished, resealing Samahata in the scroll he had taken it from. Soren gave him a dry look. So were you serious for any of that fight whatsoever? Naruto thought about it for a moment. Right at the beginning I was, but when it was clear that he couldn't do much of anything to me I stopped caring so much. I learned something cool though. Soren stopped walking, getting Naruto's attention. Where were we supposed to be going again? Naruto shook his head. I don't know. I was just going to follow the WoW Alabasta princess, save her country, get her forever indebted to me, and somehow convince her to sleep with me. Soren sweet dropped. So we're stuck in the middle of the desert. We don't have any knowledge of the country whatsoever, and we aren't even sure of where we're supposed to be going. You are the stupidest captain I have ever seen in my entire life. Naruto got in Soren's face. No, I'm not. That distinction goes to Luffy. You can't even score me on the spectrum of stupid that Luffy exists on. You pee him on that scale in some ways. Soren shouted back, you have your own continuum of stupid. Naruto and Soren went nose to nose growling at each other. You're so lucky that I can't waste any more fluid to melt you. Naruto returned fire. You're so lucky the ship isn't anywhere near us or I would tie you right to the front of it again. He turned to the right to see that they were still close to the ocean. Come to think of it, Naruto swatted him hard to the side, sending him flying towards the water. Soren was able to stop himself just short of falling into the ocean and got up to glare at Naruto. I almost fell in there, you whisker-faced hole. I should beat the out of you. He yelled as he noticed Naruto walking up to him with his attention out towards the ocean. What the is so interesting? Soren turned to see 5 destroyed and flaming ships sinking not far from shore. Who in the did that? Naruto shook his head and looked further down the coast. Hey, some guy crashed his boat. Naruto ran up the seashore and looked at the small boat. It had simply run aground. There was nothing wrong with it at all. Soren arrived shortly after and saw a man half submerged in the sand. He grabbed onto one of the man's legs and pulled him out. The person had on black boots, black knee-length shorts, an orange belt that Naruto subconsciously wanted to steal, and an orange hat on his head. The man was shirtless and had a very distinctive tattoo on his back. Soren's jaw almost dropped at seeing the tattoo. No way, what is one of these guys doing all the way out here? Shouldn't they be somewhere closer to the new world or something? Naruto looked at his crewmate oddly. Who are you talking about? Do you know who this guy is? Soren nodded. I might. He used his foot to F the man over and took in his features before speaking again. The man had black hair, freckles on his face, and on the front of his hat were 2 blue smileys, one smiling, the other frowning. Soren gestured down. Let me introduce you to Portgas d'Ace, the 2nd Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates. He looked up at Naruto, expecting to see some kind of reaction but had to hold himself from face faulting when he saw Naruto picking his ear and staring at what had come out. Hey. Pay attention hole. Naruto fed his ear gunk into the ocean. What? I don't know who any of the people you just talked about were. Should I care? Soren growled. Yes, you should care. This guy is one of the most dangerous people in the world. Fire Fist Ace is a major player out on the Grand Line. Naruto poked at him with a stick that he had somehow procured in the desert. Well, it doesn't seem like he's the most dangerous of anything. He looks like a major player in the afterlife right now. Look at him, he's dead man. Soren palmed his face. He's not dead, at least I don't think so. He blinked in confusion. Where's the little reindeer doctor right now when you need him? Yawn. Ace let out a mib yawn that scared a few years off of Naruto and Soren's lifespans as they near teleported back out of fright. He sat up and looked around, smacking his, oh man, well at least I got out of Luffy's sight before I fell asleep again. That would have been uncool to crash like that in front of my little brother's crew. Naruto walked up to Ace. You're Luffy's older brother? He asked. Ace looked up at Naruto before getting up off the ground. Yeah. You guys know Luffy? Naruto nodded. He took my crew away from the town when the Marines showed up and crashed our little landing party. And now we have no clue where they're all going, so we can catch up. He looked Ace over. You know, other than the hair color you really don't look like Luffy. Ace waved it off. I get that from time to time. Wait, you were the one that fought that Marine that was chasing my brother? Smoker. Naruto asked. Yeah, I beat the crap out of that guy. Why? Did you want a piece of him? He's still back there somewhere, though he isn't going to be any good for anything for at least a few hours. Ace gave a wide grin and reached his hand out for Naruto to shake. I appreciate that. It's good to know that someone is looking out for the idiot when I can't be around. The name's Portgas d'Ace. Naruto grinned back as he shook his hand. Uzumaki Naruto. The bald kid standing right there is Soren. Soren rolled his eyes at Naruto's introduction but made an acknowledging gesture to show who he was. Soren then walked up to Ace. Alright, now that formalities are out of the way, what is a high-ranking member of the Whitebeard Pirates doing all the way back near the start of the Grand Line? Ace's face got serious. I'm looking for a man that used to be a subordinate of mine. He would be going by the name of Blackbeard, these days if you've heard of him. Naruto and Soren shook their heads when Naruto spoke up. Your mood changed pretty quickly. What did this guy do to you to make you chase him all over the Grand Line? Ace's hat shadowed his face. He killed one of his own crewmates. He stole and killed one of our men and then he ran for the hills. I'm here to take him down. That soured Naruto's mood. An old school pet peeve of his to say the very least was a man that put himself above his own comrades. This Blackbeard seemed like someone that would just flat out rub him the wrong way. Soren and Naruto looked at each other. Well, I was going to ask you for your help in getting to wherever Luffy and his crew ended up taking my crew, but you've got enough on your plate at the moment. But if I see this guy, do you want me to kill him for you? Naruto said with a gleam in his eye. Only if it suits you and if you can handle it. He wasn't on Whitebeard's crew for nothing. Ace said dismissively, but I actually have a mission for you if you want to accept it. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Missions usually consist of payment. Ace reached into his pockets before grinning sheepishly. It seems that I left my wallet elsewhere. Can I give you an IOU? Soren pointed to Ace's belt. If you give me that flask of water on your belt, you've got a deal. Ace shrugged and unhooked the flask to throw at Soren, who accepted it with a grin. Naruto palmed his face, and that's why I handle our official business. You do not know how to negotiate. He sighed and gestured at Ace. What's the mission? Ace smirked. It's actually pretty simple. I just want you to watch Luffy's back. I have a feeling that he's going to get into some real big trouble somewhere down the line that he might not be able to handle on his own, and a guy like you seems reliable. Naruto nodded. Sure thing. But it would help right now if I knew where he was going. Ace scratched his head under his hat. I think he said something about heading north to Alubarna. If you head east, you'll find a river that you can follow north for a while. That's what they'll all probably be taking. You can probably catch them pretty quickly if you get moving. Naruto bowed slightly. Then that's where we need to get going too. Good luck out there, Ace. I hope I see you again out there sometime. Don't worry about me, worry about Luffy, that's your mission. Ace teased. I'll be fine, I've just got to get back out onto the waters. He pushed his boat back into the ocean and jumped onto it. See you guys whenever. Naruto and Soren waved to Ace as he started off along the waves. Soren pointed out at him as his form retreated further and further away. Ace seems like an interesting guy, and he's one of Whitebeard's favorites. Why can't Rubber Boy be cool like that? Naruto frowned as they started out towards the river that Ace identified for them. Hey, Luffy's cool. He's just a different kind of cool. Comparing Luffy's cool to my cool and Ace's cool is completely uncool. Soren sweet dropped. Yeah, you're cool. Let's just find everybody else already before even more bad stuff happens to us. Naruto nodded. Agreed. How fast can you move? Soren took a swig of the new flask he had just gotten from Ace. I can go for as long as you need me to. I'll set a decent pace for us. The two men took off through the sands to begin searching for their friends. Naruto gave a side glance at Soren. You do know that you could have just waited for Ace to tell us that we were going to be following a river instead of trading a favor from an important guy for a sip of water, right? Soren spit out the water he was drinking. What? Naruto sighed. Just keep running. Chapter 11. Hot heat. Naruto wasn't a very hateful person. It was very, very difficult to irk Naruto's nerves enough to actually make him openly despise you just for existing. Things that had earned this discrepancy: Orochimaru, Kabuto Yakushi, Madara Uchiha, bigotry, cold ramen, and fresh vegetables. Now there was a new add-on to that list. I hate the God Desert. Naruto yelled as he and Soren finally found where the Straw Hat crew had left the ship and moved inland from. The two decided to take a short breather on board before trying to figure out which way they had headed. The Going Merry had been stopped by a town covered in sand, like it caught the brunt of the abuse from a sandstorm. Soren yelled right back as he walked out of their kitchen. Oh, shut the up, Uzumaki. At least you don't dry out like a raisin in the sun like I do. I need more fluid out here than everyone else on our crew combined. He then pointed a thumb back into the kitchen. And what the happened to all of their food? Didn't they just restock back in Nanohana? It hasn't even been 2 days yet. As a matter of fact, what happened to our food, because we're out on our ship too. Forget the food, look at my face, Soren. Naruto shouted while painfully poking his red face. I've gotten sunburn. Even though it would heal up in record time, sunburn was still sunburn and it's still ed for everyone alike. Soren fed Naruto on the forehead, eliciting a yelp of pain. Look at me, you idiot, I'm bald. Now that Naruto noticed, Soren's entire exposed skin set was even more lobster red than his was. Naruto gave Soren an apologetic look. Oh, sorry Soren. You're right. Come on, they've got that Dr. Reindeer chopper of theirs on board. I'm sure they've got something for this. Naruto accentuated with an intentionally hard set of pats on the back as he made his way back inside. Soren yelled out in pain and followed Naruto back inside, taking care to keep his back arched. Gah, I'm going to be shedding for weeks. Awesome. Naruto shouted as he picked up something on a chair inside of the ship. Noji-chan left my sage coat here, and that means no more sunburn for me. Naruto said with a grin while throwing the red jacket on his frame. Soren grumbled and went all over going through the possessions of the Straw Hat crew members trying to find some of Chopper's medical supplies, and maybe something to cover his body with while they crossed the rest of the desert. Chuckling at Soren's grumbles, Naruto noticed a note fall to the floor that he picked up to read. To Naruto-kun and Soren. We are headed northwest to Yuba with the rest of the Straw Hats. We thought about leaving one of us with the ship for when you caught up, but I know that you'll be able to meet us soon. I hope you'll be careful, and that you two don't kill each other out there because if you do we'll never find your bodies. Good luck, Nojiko. Naruto shook his head and put the note in his pocket with a smile on his face. I appreciate the thought, Noji-chan, but there was a chance that someone else could have intercepted this that shouldn't have. Ah. Soren walked up to Naruto with a look of relief on his face as he rubbed a white ointment onto his head. Did that little reindeer make this stuff? Again I reiterate, we need to lure that little miracle worker onto our ship. Take some, it's awesome. He then blinked before pointing at Naruto accusingly. Hey, what happened to your face? It's barely even red anymore. Bull. You aren't even peeling. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. I heal really quick. Soren grumbled a little more before rubbing more ointment onto his head and settling down. Well, we left the Marines in the dust back in Nanohana. After the kicking we gave them, if they show up again I would call that a small miracle for them. Or, Naruto responded, they'll just am their forces after this and wait us out so that they don't have to fight us on those same terms again. Either way, we need to catch up to everybody else and link back up with our own crew. Where the is Yuba? It's northwest. Soren pointed in the proper direction as they made their way back outside. And why are we going to Yuba? You and I could probably sack the capital all on our own and nip this in the bud now. Naruto wagged his finger chittingly at Soren. Sacking the capital wouldn't do anyone any good, Soren. Unless you want to run the country or something. And I don't see why in Kami's name you would, it's mostly paperwork anyway. Crocodile isn't going to be out in the open, that would be way too easy, and I'm sure that if he orchestrated this whole thing he's not that stupid. Naruto stroked his chin in thought. We're not going to Yuba. Soren blinked blankly for a moment before he pumped his fist in victory. Yeah. We're going to sack the capital. Naruto shook his head. We're not going to the capital either. It wouldn't even do us any good to go there, I keep telling you. He walked along the deck of the ship, pacing about. We need to utterly wreck his entire operation, make it rot from the inside out. We need to start picking Baroque works apart, because even if we got Crocodile's location somehow he still has an entire army at his beck and call to block us. Before Naruto could say any more, a pack of running feet and of confused animal noises drew their attention. Both men stood at the edge of the ship and took note of a group of strange purple-frilled lizards running south through the desert. At a closer look, Sora nudged Naruto. Uzumaki, check it out. Look at what they're carrying. The lizards were carrying paper messages in their hands. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Go get one of Nami-chan's maps and tell me what's north of Yuba. Soren went inside while Naruto debated killing one of the innocent lizards for their message. Nah, there's no reason to, especially if we end up running into some human operatives after this anyway. Soren came back out. There's a town north of Yuba, Rainbase. Why did you want to know? Those things came from straight northwest. It looks like we're going to Rainbase, Soren. Get ready because we're going to be moving fast again. Naruto said with a smirk on his face. Soren shrugged. You're the boss. Just let me grab my stuff and we can leave. As the Straw Hats and the remainders of the Foxhound pirates walked through the desert, sans Naruto and Soren, the latter crew was actually concerned with their missing crew members, or one person was. Nojiko walked with her head down as they all trudged through the desert. I wish I knew whether or not they were okay. We left Nanohana so fast I couldn't tell whether or not they won. Johnny snickered. We saw a tornado from 10 kilometers away from the town. Who else on the face of the planet has the power to make tornadoes at will? And who else would be crazy enough to use it in the middle of a town? Naruto, Aniki and Soren are just fine. With the promise of actually eating lunch at the next rock they came across. Please note that this was in a desert. Luffy sprinted while dragging all of the supplies behind him over to the shady area. Look. A rock. Lunch. Why is he so fast now? Usopp asked while pointing with his thumb at the dust cloud. Sanji sighed as he took a drag from his cigarette while his eyes were preoccupied with reading something. Because Vivi-chan told the idiot we could eat at the next rock we made it to. Vivi smiled sheepishly before looking over to Nami. So I've met him and know who he is, but I've never personally had a conversation with the man. Just who is this Naruto person that you and your sister keep mentioning? You've been referencing him ever since we left Whiskey Peak. Nami turned to her. Oh yeah, if Naruto-kun was on our crew then things wouldn't be nearly as hard as they are. Every time we've ever seen him fight he's beaten his opponent pretty easily. We've only seen him get serious once, and I still doubt he was really trying then. Yosaku, covered in desert travel garb, snorted nearby. I don't think we're ever going to see Naruto Aniki actually try against anyone. When he smashed Arlong the only hits he took were the ones he wanted to take. He tore the place apart without even meaning to. I mean, he makes tornadoes and tidal waves at will without batting an eye. That usually means that he can do more than that. No way. Vivi said, shaking her head. There's no way that anyone is that strong. I mean look at you guys. I've seen Luffy fight and the way you talk you make it seem like he could destroy all of you without breaking a sweat. I admit, he's very good from when he protected me back at Whiskey Peak, but come on. Johnny and Yosaku raised their hands slowly. Actually on that note, Naruto Aniki's been both beating the crap out of us and dodging Nojiko Ainu's gunswows blindfolded for training, or as he likes to call it, kicks. Both men then turned to each other and blinked. Wait, he never turned the weight seals back on did he? Johnny laughed uproariously. I knew it was feeling too easy to move around. He pumped a fist towards Zoro. Really soon Zoro Aniki, we'll be strong enough to fight you evenly really soon. Count on it. Zoro simply shook his head in amusement as he dragged a heat-exhausted chopper behind him on a makeshift sled. Miss Valentine had been very silent since they had left Nanohana, seemingly in thought, what's this guy's angle? She asked, getting the attention of everyone who had been talking. He just storms into a fight that wasn't his business, protects a princess he's never met of a country he probably otherwise would never have gone to, and then after he beats me up he offers to protect me. I can't put my finger on this guy. Nojiko shrugged. I've stopped trying to figure him out by now. It just leads to you thinking in circles. Just go with the flow like everyone else on our ship has been doing, because I don't even think Naruto-kun knows what he plans on doing until right when he does it. Miss Valentine laughed in amusement. Come on. He has to have some kind of higher level of thinking or something that you're all just not getting. All masterminds do. There's no way that anyone would just come out to sea without a plan of what they wanted, right? She finished, laughing more until 6 separate sweet drops were her answer. Really? Nami nodded and palmed her forehead as she tried to explain. Let me put this in perspective for you just so that you understand the level of higher thinking you're dealing with. When our Captain Luffy left his home island in the East Blue on a little dinghy by himself, he had a plan of forming a crew and eventually finding One Piece and becoming king of the pirates. Naruto-kun just got bored one day and 2 hours later hopped a merchant ship that took him away from his continent, where he stole a ship from pirates out at sea that attacked the one he was already riding on. He then ended up meeting me, Luffy, and Zoro and traveled with us for a bit before wandering off and taking on these 2 sword slacker clowns and my sister when he got tired of staying in one place. I don't even think he has an actual goal for being out on the Grand Line. Miss Valentine face faulted into the sand. That's crazy. Who goes out onto the Grand Line without even an inkling of what you want to do out here? Yosaku interjected. In Naruto Anaki's defense, he did say he came out here in particular to fight the crushing boredom he was feeling from when he was at wherever his home is. Johnny spoke next. He also said that he wanted to find the strongest people in the world and fight them to see where he stacked up in comparison, and I pity the poor bastards that are that high up in the food chain. Nojiko sighed. That's Naruto-kun to a T, alright. Vivi blinked in confusion. But why doesn't he fight Luffy if he just wants to see where he stands in the world? Zoro shook his head, because both of them know that a fight like that wouldn't prove anything. As they both are now, Naruto would destroy Luffy, and they both know it. As far as we know, Naruto has no devil fruit powers and knows the weakness that all users suffer from. He also has no problems using that weakness, as he said as much himself when he traveled with us. Even without it, from what I've seen, it wouldn't matter. Luffy can't hit him because he moves too fast. Even when he's just playing around, he's just as physically strong as Luffy, if not stronger. He has too many different techniques that no one has ever even seen before, and the way he fought at Arlong Park was like an experienced warrior that had done that kind of thing countless times. Usopp scratched his head under his turban. I'm still stumped at how someone like that can be so strong to manipulate elements without a devil fruit. Miss Valentine dragged a hand down her face and looked at everyone with a deadpan expression. So you're saying that I've been traveling on a ship with a man that has enough power to physically manipulate the actual environment around him at will. He has no goals in life, and yet he finds himself out on the most dangerous ocean route known to man just for kicks. He has a crew of pirates, yet he never particularly cared for being one. He wants to fight the most powerful people in existence but has no real motivation for doing so. And lastly, he doesn't even have a devil fruit. By the way, why is he even here in the first place? Johnny smirked. I think he said something about saving the country and getting the Super Wow princesses to dance for him again, like at Whiskey Peak, whatever that means. Vivi visibly blushed and turned her face from sight. Sanji chuckled lecherously. You know, I think me and this Naruto guy are going to get along fairly well. He turned a page in the book he was reading, especially if he has more of these orange books I found on your ship. Seriously, whoever wrote this is a genius. Miss Valentine kept her deadpan face until a smile slowly worked its way onto her face. I'm following the human embodiment of anarchy and discard. Laughs. You know, this Naruto might be more fun to be around than being in Baroque works. At least he won't try to kill you if you mess up. At that moment, Luffy came sprinting back from the rock he had dragged all of their luggage to. There are a bunch of dying birds back there. Chopper, come with me and heal them. Chopper got off of the sled he was being dragged on. Oh okay, I'm coming. Luffy picked him up and sprinted back to the rocks immediately. Dying birds. Vivi said. Wait, Luffy-san. Those birds are Warusugi. Thieves of the desert. She yelled out in vain to him. Nami looked at Nojiko, both with sweet drops on their heads. My captain is stupider. Nojiko shook her head. No, Luffy's just ignorant. My captain is stupider. He's something of a pervert too. Nami smirked. You know you like it. At least he's cute. Nojiko rolled her eyes. Being cute only makes up for being only so dense and clueless. I swear Naruto-kun plays hopscotch on that line every single day. Says you. Nami said before turning her view ahead slyly. So, you want to trade? Nojiko scoffed. Not a chance in. 2 days later, Naruto and Soren, who had found a white cloak to cover himself with on the ship, eventually found their way into Rainbase without too much trouble and effort, other than the next to endless running. Naruto shook his head as they entered town, his old goggles hiding his eyes as he realized during the first trek to where his and Luffy's crews had docked their ships that getting sand blown into your eyes was a pain in the. I'm just saying, Soren, there was no reason at all for you to stop and do what you did. Soren turned to his captain and gave him a dry look. We were being chased by a giant scorpion for like 12 miles. All I did was just turn around and melt it right quick. Naruto made a gesture as if that was his point. Exactly. You melted it. We were outrunning it so bad it wasn't even funny. It wasn't going to catch us, and I think it was getting tired. Besides, it only felt like 12 miles. We didn't go anywhere because you made us run in circles. Soren took a swig from his canteen. How could you tell it was getting tired? It was a ink scorpion. Why didn't you just kick it into the distance or say something if you were that worried about it, Mr. Nature Activist? Naruto growled. Because someone turned into a banshee and started yelling about how we were going to die for about 2 miles worth of running. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. Soren turned away, scratching his mark. Come on man, you can't say those giant claws didn't freak you out. Naruto gave him a deadpan look. Those giant claws didn't freak me out, I've seen bigger. Soren couldn't tell whether or not he was kidding. You aren't even from the Grand Line, how could you have seen bigger? I call bull. Naruto shrugged, believe whatever you want to. Now come on, let's look around this place. The city was a pretty thriving looking place. From what they both gathered from merely listening into the conversations of others, there was a widespread drought going on around the entire country. Well, from what both men could see, there sure as wasn't one going on here. Drought my. Soren said as they continued walking around the city. For a country undergoing a drought, this particular place seems to be doing just aces, doesn't it? Naruto. Ed, in thought, maybe. But we wouldn't hear that many people complain about it if there wasn't one going on. It's just one town. And apparently that river we were near used to be way stronger than it is now. Soren rubbed his chin. Well, droughts usually stop everything. If there was a drought, there would be no real commerce coming to this place because water is the base of everything. No water, no nothing, you know. Naruto pointed to a huge pyramid-shaped building. You think that might have something to do with the reason why this place is still kicking? Soren looked at the giant pyramid building, and more specifically at the giant crocodile statue on top of it. Gee, that isn't a dead giveaway to anyone that isn't a complete idiot at all, is it? Naruto smirked and nodded. Okay, it's time for some good old-fashioned espionage. And what better way to do that than to actually stay at this stupid resort? Soren interjected helpfully. It's actually a resort, restaurant, casino. Naruto waved it off. Whatever, can't you see I'm planning here? Anyway, we get a room and simply scope this place out until Crocodile does something stupid enough that he s up and comes out, and then we kick his. Soren grinned. I like the part where we kick his especially. The grin fell from his face. But wait, what if he notices us? Won't he try to kill us? Naruto nodded. Of course he will. But he's not going to come and do it himself. He'll just send his lackeys to do it, and you and me can kill his lackeys all day because he's not even going to send his elites. He's not going to do anything wide-scale, and so as long as we don't give them an excuse to kick us out, everything will be fine. Soren thought about it. Well, I do need a vacation, but you do know that when everyone finds out where we are, they're going to beat the crap out of us. Yeah, Naruto admitted, but I'm sure we can come up with a good enough reason as to why we're here when it comes to it. Like we have terrible senses of direction or something like that. Besides, I'm paying for this with my own money, so who cares what they think? Both men stopped talking as they arrived at the front desk. Oh, I would like to purchase a room for a week's stay at your resort. Soren interjected. It's a resort, restaurant, casino. Naruto got a tick mark on his head. Yeah, sure, whatever. He turned his attention back to the attendant. Anyway, could I get a room for a week here? The woman behind the desk smiled pleasantly. Of course, that will be 100,000 belly. Soren blinked in surprise. That's a lot. How are we going to? He cut himself off when he saw Naruto simply f through some bills and hand over the cash. The lady smiled pleasantly and handed them a pair of keys. Thank you, and please enjoy your stay at Rain Dinners. Naruto nodded and motioned for Soren to follow along as they searched for their room. The acid user whispered harshly once they got out of ears. Wow, how the did you pay for that? You just dropped 100,000 belly like it was nothing. Naruto shrugged, because it kind of was nothing. I have money from when I first got to the East Blue. I also ended up stealing some money from those bounty hunters at Whiskey Peak, and from that castle at Drum Island. Soren raised an eyebrow. You stole right in front of the Straw Hats in Drum Kingdom. Naruto grinned. Well, not right in front of them, they never saw me actually do it. Soren shook his head. You're kind of a bastard, you know that. Naruto made a wishy-washy motion with his hand, a little bit. One day later, resorts weren't really Naruto's thing. He never really felt comfortable being pampered and not having to do anything productive for himself, so even having to endure this for 24 hours left him borderline stir-crazy. He couldn't train with Soren lest they blow the shoddy cover they had, and when I say shoddy I mean shoddy. In hindsight, Naruto should have probably used Henge no Jutsu, transformation jutsu, to hide the identities of himself and Soren, but didn't do so for two reasons. 1. To keep the henge over Soren, he would have had to stay with him the entire time they were there, and that would have seriously made it difficult to attempt any surveillance. Way more difficult than it would have been to just in and out of the shadows otherwise, because Soren was actually surprisingly good at making himself scarce when it was needed. How else would he have been able to dodge the Marines for as long as he did otherwise? 2. He simply forgot once they got inside. However, once he remembered, told this to Soren, and got through listening to him gripe about how stupid a captain he was, Naruto shut him up by simply saying, "Robbery etiquette says that you cannot criticize the robbery plan while the job is in session. You have to wait until the raid is over." On that note, Naruto was simply sitting lazily in the casino, waiting on word from either Soren or one of the cage bunchen he had littered about the entire city, keeping tabs on whatever they found of interest. Naruto was currently indulging in the wonders of blackjack while listening to the conversation around him. Naruto looked down disinterestedly as he was more interested with the hearsay coming from the fellow casino patrons around him. "Hit me," Naruto said as he had a visible king of spades. He hadn't even bothered to check what else he had. The dealer shrugged and did as Naruto asked before motioning as if asking if he wanted another card. Naruto was currently smirking after a remark that someone made nearby. "Crocodile, a hero of the people, my." Naruto didn't even bother looking down. "I'll stay." The dealer sweet dropped and went around the table. Naruto's thoughts strayed elsewhere as he kept his own eyes open for anything of interest in the crowd of people. "I wonder where everyone else is. Luffy is strong enough to keep everyone safe, they'll all be fine." "Well, look at that." A voice Naruto hadn't heard in a while said, "It seems like you won." "Dealer, what kind of streak is this man on right now?" The dealer was giving chips to Naruto with a dry look on his face. "Miss Manager, this guy has been here for 2 hours, I think he's won about 41 times straight by now." A familiar woman in a white cowboy hat sat next to Naruto and leaned her cheek into her hand. "You must be very well off right about now. I hope you wouldn't mind cashing some of that out and buying a lady a drink." Naruto smirked and finally turned to face her. "It's certainly been a while, hasn't it? What do I call you here? Do I call you by your real name or your code name? I ask because your boss might be uptight about that kind of thing and I'm not really here to bust you, just him." She returned his smirk with one of her own. "You can call me whatever you want. I don't really care to tell you the truth." Naruto nodded. "Okay then, I think I'll use your real name, Robin-chan. Now, did you come over here to just shoot the breeze with me and watch me clean this place out, or is there something you want from me?" he said as he stood up, taking the spoils of his victory. Nico Robin shook her head as she began to follow him. "What exactly is your big plan to take down Crocodile? I highly doubt that you cleaning out his casino the way you've been doing is supposed to be a part of some conspiracy to finish off Baroque works." Naruto shrugged. "You never know. But I have to say that this is a rather smart way to fund the group. Taking the money of the people around you to keep them happy and stupid right before you ruin their country. I bet everyone in this town couldn't care less about the ongoings of the rest of the country even if they tried. A good place for a base, no civil unrest to touch you, you never even have to see the effects of what you're doing." Robin laughed slightly. "So you're some kind of counter-revolutionary. Like the most wanted man in the world, but simply one for anarchy." Naruto shook his head with an amused look on his face as they navigated the crowd. "You're trying to look at the big picture when there simply is none to look at, Robin-chan. I don't have any underlying motives. I don't have a desire to see the entire government collapse or to see it maintain control, and after I'm done here I don't really care about what happens to this place. I just know right from wrong, and what this crocodile bastard is doing is wrong." They finally made it to the place to cash out as Naruto set his winnings on the table. "I don't know what exactly he's trying to accomplish since he doesn't seem like the kind of guy to run a country, but all I know is that I can't let it happen." Naruto placed his hand out as a set of large stacks of bills were set into his hand. Robin followed Naruto once again as he walked away. The blonde sighed and looked over his shoulder as he led her along. "It's clear that you're not here to kill me because I've been giving you countless openings to go for it since you've found me, so what do you want? If you stay out of my way when this all goes down then we won't have to be enemies, but if you step in my way you'll risk getting caught in the crossfire, and that is just no place for a lady like you to be." Robin frowned. "So give me a time frame." Naruto looked back at her and grinned widely. "I can't do that." That was an answer she couldn't accept. "Why not?" If you want me out of the way for whatever it is you're here to do, then I'll need to know when to bow out of this organization. Crocodile may have been a Shichibukai, but the way this man spoke was as if that title was just a pretty word, as if it was already a foregone conclusion that he wasn't going to be stopped by him. Naruto's grin turned sheepish. I can't give you a time frame because I don't even know myself when all of this is going to kick off. Your guess is as good as mine, honestly. That stopped her in her tracks. Robin stared at him in disbelief. So you're basically telling me that sometime in the next who knows when, something is going to happen that will spell the end for Baroque works, and you not only don't know when it's going to happen, you don't even have a clue of what's going to spark it. Naruto shook his head. No, I know what's going to spark it. I definitely know that much. I just don't know how long it's going to take for him to show up. Him? Robin questioned before her face took on a sly smile. You mean the Straw Hat Boy, Luffy? She giggled. You know, you are the absolute worst mastermind I have ever seen in my entire life. You're banking on the rubber boy to beat Crocodile instead of you fighting him yourself. Naruto shrugged. You call me a bad mastermind because you think my plan is stupid, but tell me, Robin-chan. Naruto summoned over a waiter and quickly paid for 2 drinks. If a plan still works, can you really call it stupid then? Naruto handed her one of the drinks and quickly downed his before backing away into the crowd. After a wave of people ped in front of him, there was no sign of him except a puff of smoke. Robin stared at where he had once been before laughing to herself and leaving with her drink in hand. Meanwhile, Naruto was outside of the casino watching her reaction from afar. When he saw her turn around and leave with a smile on her face, he pumped his fist in victory. Yes. Kami, that was so cool. If I had tried that at least 100 years ago, I never would have pulled that off. He sighed and looked up in accomplishment. So that's why all of the bad guys did stuff like that all the time. That felt really, really good. Go figure. Naruto slinked out of sight and managed to make his way up to the very top of Rain Dinners, currently sitting on the golden crocodile statue at the top, pretty much out of sight. His eyes were shut as he meditated. Around the edges of them were slight orange pigment. A smirk came to his face as he sensed someone coming near. What do you have, Soren? A moment later, a rapid pitter-patter of footsteps coming up the side of the resort signified Soren running up the side of the building and coming to a stop right next to Naruto on the roof. I really hate that you can do that. How the did you know I was coming before I even started making noise? Naruto shrugged and opened his eyes, revealing yellow toad-like eyes with a horizontal bar-like pupil before they receded to the normal blue. Oh, just some tricks I've picked up. Now what do you have for me? Soren sat down near Naruto on the roof. It's a big conspiracy, Uzumaki. Crocodile wants to overthrow the king of Alabasta. Naruto rolled his eyes. No. Really? Tell me something else I didn't know. Soren started leaking acid mist from his body in anger. Shut the up and let me finish if you don't mind, mister. I know everything about nothing. Now, as I was saying, he's actually going to come out for this one, if you can actually believe it. Like it's the bad guy code to stay in the shadows until it's time for the big stuff to happen, and then they have to go and make a show of it. Anyway, as far as I can gather, it won't be long now before he shows himself. So when do we get him? He asked eagerly. Naruto shook his head. We don't ever get him. Luffy gets him. Soren's jaw dropped. Oh come on, Uzumaki. The only reason I was so excited about this was because I thought I was going to fight Crocodile myself. And you're letting Rubber Boy take the fight. Why? Naruto looked over at Soren. Call it a litmus test if you will. You have nothing to prove to me. You've been here in the Grand Line for as long as you have and you're still alive. I don't need to fight Crocodile myself because he hasn't pissed me off enough to get me on his case. Ace told me to watch over Luffy, but I'm not going to fight every single battle for him. He signed on and told the princess to her face that he was going to do this himself, and I'm the kind of guy that expects people to keep their promises. He's fighting Crocodile himself, and you're staying out of it. Soren was upset at not getting a crack at a Shichibukai but understood. Luffy was untested, and how better to protect someone than to first see exactly what they're capable of and how much they can handle. This was possibly the best feasible field test for someone that couldn't have been set up. Something like this had to just happen, and interfering in any way would have been in bad taste. Still, so I can't fight anyone? Soren asked. Naruto sighed. You can fight someone if they somehow find us and try to start something. Now where the air the Straw Hats and our crew. I'm ready to get this show on the road, you know. Soren shrugged. I don't know, but I do know someone that's in town. Your friend Smoker and that sword-using chick that's always with him, Tashigi. It. Naruto ran his hand through his hair. Wait, you know his underling's name. Why? Soren looked away and whistled innocently. You kicked her in Nanohana, didn't you? No. Soren claimed defensively. I didn't kill her. I didn't even try to kill her. That's what I consider kicking someone's, killing them. As long as I leave you alive, that wasn't an kicking, it was a character builder. I was even nice enough to leave her sword intact. He said with a hint of pride. Naruto's eye twitched. Wow, I'm so proud of you that you didn't turn a girl into a puddle. Would you like some applause for that feat of mercy? Soren grumbled. Kiss my Uzumaki. Naruto chuckled before a mental cue from a dispelled Kage Bunshin put a damper on his mood. The Straw Hats are finally here. And they've got the Marines back on there. They ran into Smoker again. He said as he stood up, pointing at a riff-raff coming up the street. They're coming this way. Get out of sight and watch from afar. This is for our crew also. Soren nodded as they jumped from the roof to an adjacent building to watch the scene unfold. As the group came upon Rain Dinners, Sanji spoke. This isn't good. We should split up. Everyone nodded in agreement. Luffy smiled. Then we'll all meet back up at Crocodile's. Luffy said before he launched himself in the air with his powers and pulled his eyelid at Smoker. Come and get me, Smokey. Smoker launched himself into the air with his own powers. Don't think you're getting away this time. Hawaito Bane, White Vine. Smoker wrapped his smoky appendage around the midair Luffy's body and held him in place, constricting him painfully. Luffy rapidly inhaled through his mouth. Gomu Gomu no Fuzan Gum Gum Balloon. Luffy's body instantly expanded and broke Smoker's grip on him, sending both of them forcefully away from one another. Luffy crash-landed in a camel pen and fled the scene. Soren looked at the street below and the pirates that separated. They split up. Who do we follow? Naruto looked at his crewmate. You can follow whoever you want. I've got Kage Bunshin scouring the entire town. I'm everywhere. Pick your favorite that you want to keep track of. Soren looked around before sitting firmly on the edge of the building. Why would I F channels when I have picture-in-picture right here? Naruto laughed. Spoken like a lazy bastard. Now shut up so I can see how everybody does. 7. Yosaku cried out as he cut into two Marines that lifted their own swords to block but were simply overpowered by the swordsman. I'm on 7 too, you bastard. Johnny yelled in return as he blocked a pair of Marines that bore down on him with their own cutlass. Johnny smirked and let off his own pressure that was blocking them, forcing them to stumble forward where he immediately dispatched them with slashes to the back, and that's 9. Yosaku chuckled as once again he blocked an attack from a Marine before freeing up one hand and delivering a haymaker to the unsuspecting man's face. 8. Hey, where's Zoro and Ikki? Wasn't he here just a second ago? Johnny ducked a slash before blocking another one over his shoulder as he used his free arm to point down the street. Some girl with a katana and glees chased him away. Hey, did you know that Zoro and Ikki is afraid of girls like that? He asked right before using his free hand to grab the attacking Marine's arm and pull him towards his body to deliver a pair of back elbows to his nose. 10. Yosaku swung his sword powerfully at a Marine, disarming him when the man lost his grip and let his sword fly off. He grabbed the hapless man by his collar and threw him at Johnny. 9. Johnny ducked and let the man crash into a pack of incoming Marines, knocking them unconscious. What the? Yosaku grinned cruelly. 14. And don't say something like that about Zoro and Ikki. If you were on a ship with someone like Nami Ainu, you would be scared too. Johnny stomped over to him and got in his face. We are on a ship with someone like that. I'm not afraid of Nojiko Ainu. I love her, she's like my sister. Yosaku returned fire, a sister that carries guns. Guns that she can actually use. Guns that she routinely brings out and uses on you, me, and Naruto and Ikki. Because we're stupid. Johnny added, she shoots at us because she cares about us. Both men turned from each other, stopped arguing, and yelled simultaneously at the Marines that had surrounded them, can we help you? The Marines backed up a step as Johnny and Yosaku started stalking towards them threateningly. Yosaku had his Miv no Dashi sitting on his shoulder while Johnny had his Uchigatana sheathed and was finging it up and down with his thumb. Both men spoke in stereo. Can't you see two men are talking? They shouted before launching at all of the Marines. Yosaku lifted his sword overhead and cleaved forward with a mighty swing as Johnny quickly unsheathed his sword and spun around in a lightning-quick circle, pushing the force of Yosaku's original attack out from the epicenter in a perfect circle around them. The force of the move knocked every single marine caught in the crossfire back violently and even broke street side windows with the sheer force of the jolt, Kumiawa's Shindo combination shockwave. Nami, Usopp, and Nojiko were running together through the streets when Nami pointed ahead. "Look. There's the entrance to rain dinners. It's built in the middle of a lake." Usopp looked around as they ran. "No one else is here yet." Nojiko kept looking around, but not speaking a word. "Where did you go, Naruto-kun? Are you alright?" A few Baroque Works operatives saw them running. "There they are. Take them out." Usopp and Nami panicked at the sight of the men pointing rifles at them, but Nojiko scoffed and reached under her cloak and swiftly brandished a pair of pistols before unloading both into the unfortunate enemies. As the men cried out in pain upon being swallowed, the blue-haired girl sighed and reholstered her pistols, reaching into a supply pouch on her waist to reload while she had the chance. She turned around and noticed Usopp and Nami staring at her. "What?" Nami pointed at what she had just done. "You just took those guys down. I didn't know you could do that." Nojiko looked down at where her pistols were held as she reloaded. "Well, Naruto-kun taught me how. I still can't hit him though. He's just way too fast." Usopp stared at her in disbelief. "Those were great swows. You've only been shooting since you've been traveling with Naruto. That's really good." Nojiko blushed under the praise. "Well, Naruto-kun says that he, quote, wants me to be able to shoot the wings off of a fly in flight from 30 yards away. So I'm not even close to being good yet." Zoro ran up to them, looking around at the fallen Baroque Works members. "Whoa, what happened here?" Nami yelled at the green-haired swordsman. "Zoro, weren't you with Vivi?" Zoro nodded. "I was, but I let her go ahead. Isn't she here yet? She didn't have to even fight anyone." Nami groaned. "She's probably inside already." "Ah." Luffy yelled as he ran towards the casino. "Moku Moku's chasing me. Let's go everybody." Smoker was wow on his heels the entire time. Luffy stopped in front of the Miv Resort and yelled at the top of his lungs, "Crocodile. Get your out here." Soren and Naruto sweet dropped at Luffy's display. Rubber Boy means well and tries hard, but he is simply not that bright at all, is he? Naruto chuckled humorously. "Seriously, this guy reminds me of myself when I was a kid so much it isn't even funny, and I'm not sure how much of a good thing that is. But I was a kid, he's near a grown man. What the is his excuse?" Soren looked at all of the aimed straw hats plus Nojiko. "Where are Sanji, Chopper, Johnny, Yosaku, and Miss Valentine?" Naruto kept his eyes on the action below. Johnny and Yosaku are beating the out of either a bunch of Marines or a bunch of Baroque Works millions. I can't tell because they're not really distinguishing one side from the other. Miss Valentine is doing her best to stay inconspicuous throughout this whole thing. She's just sitting pretty in a cafe at the edge of town. I'm actually thinking of going to get her since she isn't going to fight. Sanji is doing the same thing Johnny and Yosaku are doing, only they're enjoying it better. And Chopper? I have not the faintest idea where he is. Nami cracked Luffy in the back of the head when he ran into the casino and once again shouted for Crocodile to show himself. How is that going to get him to come out, you dumb? He's the hero of this country. Do you want to make enemies of all of the people too? Luffy simply ignored her and kept yelling out until employees started calling for security and Smoker kicked the front door down. I've got you now, Straw Hat. This place is on a lake. You can't get away. Luffy mumbled before taking off running through the building. Nojiko sweet dropped. What is this guy's problem with Luffy and Naruto-kun? He's so obsessive it's kind of scary. 3 security guards tried to take Luffy outside but he simply bowled them over and kept running around the casino. Suddenly a red carpet rolled out from the main office as multiple attendants stood around gesturing to the door. Right this way to the VIP room please. That actually pissed off all of the Straw Hats. Nami glared at the door. Is he saying to bring it on? Zoro laughed angrily. What a clever guy. Luffy growled. Let's go already. Luffy ran down the carpet and through the door. Hey, what does VIP mean? The rest of the crew ran inside after him, short one Nojiko, who stayed outside, still concealed by her desert garb. Nojiko shook her head and walked away. There is no way I'm going in there with the rest of you. Are you all insane? She threw her hands up in exasperation as she left the casino. I'm looking for everyone else so we can bail you idiots out after you get yourselves caught. Soren looked at the entrance of the casino warily. Should we go in? Naruto shook his head. Nope. He pointed. Noji-chan's coming out. She's my responsibility right now. Back in a sec. Naruto vanished in a shunshin, leaving Soren alone on the roof until he reappeared a second later, holding Nojiko close to him. Hi Noji-chan. Crack. Naruto cried as he held the lump on his head from where Nojiko hit him with the butt of her pistol. Okay, I guess I might have deserved that. Nojiko glared at him before and pointing the same pistol at Soren, who immediately stopped laughing. Where the have you two been? I know well you're both more than fast enough to catch up to us. Naruto and Soren looked at each other before nodding and speaking at the same time. Here getting intel. Nojiko tapped her foot impatiently. And what can you tell me that I don't already know? Think carefully. Soren rubbed his head. Even with rigged games, for some reason this guy doesn't lose at gambling. Naruto shrugged. The resort mage parlor doesn't do happy endings. Ow, got it. Naruto yelled after taking another hit from Nojiko's gun. Pervert, she growled. What are you doing? Aren't you going to go fight Crocodile? Go do your thing and turn that casino into a crater in the ground and finish this. Naruto stroked his chin. I could do that. I should do that. But I'm not going to do that. So sorry Noji-chan, not this time. Soren grumbled. Yeah, the almighty Uzumaki says we aren't fighting Crocodile. Tem. Nojiko looked at Naruto strangely. Why the aren't we fighting Baroque works Naruto-kun? Naruto returned her look. You're telling me you want to fight? Nojiko shook her head. Luffy's crew were the ones that volunteered to do this. I didn't sign us up for this. I'm just here to observe and step in if it becomes absolutely necessary. And, absolutely necessary, means? The female crew member asked. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. Desperate doomsday ultimatum scenario, more or less. Well, Nojiko stated sheepishly. Luffy, Nami, Usopp, and Zoro walked right into the most blatant trap I've ever seen anyone set up ever. Does that count as bad enough to get involved? Naruto shook his head. Nope. Nojiko face faulted. Are you going to do anything? Do you at least know where Vivi is? Yeah. Naruto admitted as he pointed to the entrance of Rain Dinners. She's right there. Naruto-kun. Nojiko shouted. Don't let them fight Crocodile alone. They're not you. You're right, they're not me. That's why I'm making them do this. Naruto shouted over her, actually stopping her with the anger in his voice. You think I don't know that no one on the Straw Hat crew is as strong as me? You think I don't realize that I could probably stop this entire thing by myself and just go about my business? Well, say that I do that. Say that I march my right into that casino, clean everyone's clock, free everyone, stomp a mudhole in Crocodiles, and save this country by myself. What would any of them get out of this? What would anyone on that crew actually learn from this? Nojiko looked between the casino and Naruto. But they could die. Naruto shook his head. I'm not stupid Noji-chan. I'm not going to let anyone die. But fighting a battle that they've dedicated themselves to won't help anyone here. We've just gotten onto the Grand Line, and all of them have big goals, goals that will put them in more danger than this. The only way to truly grow is to push your limits. Just let it happen. This isn't our fight. He walked to the edge of the building and smirked as he saw a pile of beaten down bodies littering the streets around Rain Dinners. Man, Sanji and the boys sure broke off a serious kicking just now, didn't they? Crocodile and Nico Robin came out from inside to survey the scene. Once again, I'll be right back. Naruto shunshined down from his spot, leaving Nojiko and Soren on the roof. Crocodile looked down at one of the beaten men. What happened here? The bloodied man looked up painfully. The guy that did this called himself Mr. Prince. He and two other guys left towards the south end of town. Crocodile looked down the street where Naruto appeared in a gust of leaves, grinning and waving at him. Crocodile glared at him coldly. Piece of, don't think you can get away from me. Robin shook her head. Why don't you just let him go? Crocodile turned the lower half of his body to sand and took off after Naruto. Be quiet, he killed all of my employees. No one humiliates me like this. Naruto saw him coming and grinned wider as he took off to evade him. You've got to be faster than that, you know. You'll never catch me moving slow like this. Naruto turned back and saw his lower body was sand. You know, I once knew another guy that had the same powers you did. Crocodile cut Naruto off with an attack. Desato Supata Desert Spada. Crocodile's right hand turned into a loose blade of sand and stabbed it into the ground. It carried out towards Naruto like a torpedo, cutting through the pavement. Right when it hit Naruto, he disappeared in a puff of smoke, his body replaced by a pot. Like I was saying before, I was so rudely interrupted. Naruto said as he walked out from a nearby alley, "I knew a guy that had the same powers you did, but he was way better than you." Crocodile simply looked at Naruto with his usual lazy-looking expression. "Are you Mr. Prince?" Naruto grinned. "No, I can't say that I am. Are you telling me that you don't know who I am? I could have sworn I told your pretty partner who I was." Kabuki instruments started playing as he started hopping to the side on one foot. "I am the child of prophecy, the #1 immortal knucklehead ninja, the all-powerful and infinitely sexy eternal Toad Sennin, and the worst possible matchup you could have to fight right now. Uzumaki Naruto." He finished with one hand straight out in front of him and the other straight out behind, crouched down in a side view with the wind blowing rose petals around him. Crocodile stood in place with a sweat drop on his head while Naruto looked up to the rooftops with a thumbs up. "Good going, guys, I think you nailed that one right on the money." On the roofs surrounding the street, AM of Naruto clones with instruments, baskets of petals, and a few channeling wind chakra down below gave Naruto a grin in return. "Anytime, boss." They then dispersed out around town. Crocodile broke out in chuckles. "So you're the kid that Miss All Sunday told me said he was going to tear my organization apart. Between you and Straw Hat coming after me, I don't know which one is more laughable." Naruto laughed along with him. "Whatever you say, but I didn't come here to fight. At least not yet, I'm leaving that to someone else. I just came to." Naruto suddenly threw 3 shuriken at Crocodile that ped through his body harmlessly. "Test your ability." Naruto nodded as if that was all he needed to know. "Yeah, you're just perfect for the kid to get his feet wet with." Crocodile looked at Naruto as if he were an idiot, and just what is that supposed to mean? Naruto laughed and turned around to walk away. "Oh, don't mind me, I've seen all I've needed to see. Besides, I'm no one important anyway. I'm nothing but a humble observer. This doesn't have very much to do with me." Crocodile sent another attack at Naruto, but he vanished in a blur of speed before it could hit. "Don't attack me, Crocodile. It's not very smart." Naruto's voice rang out from around him. "Now weren't you looking for a Mr. Prince? I don't know about you, but I have people to collect." Crocodile looked around before scoffing and making his way to the outskirts of town to find Mr. Prince. Chapter 12. Whatever doesn't kill you. Smoker stared at the Straw Hat crew after being pulled out of the destroyed resort rain dinners, which Crocodile had sunken to the bottom of the lake it was situated on to finish them all off. He let out a sigh and waved them off. "Go," he said, allowing them to leave without a fight. "The next time we meet, however, you're a dead man. Remember that, Straw Hat Luffy." The sound of the Marines combing through the town got ever closer when Luffy gave Smoker a grin. "You know, I don't hate your guts after all, Smokey." Smoker pulled out his jute and took a swing at him to get him to flee. "Get thee out of here." Smoker watched as the crew took off, leaving him behind as the group of Marines came to him. "Sir, aren't you going to go after them?" Smoker shut his eyes and leaned against a building. "No, I'm tired." He ignored the looks of surprise from his men. "Call back the men who went off to chase them, they won't catch them. Get them back here and call headquarters. Tell them to send all Marine ships in the vicinity to Alabasta." The Marine who had been speaking to him stared in shock. "Call for reinforcements." "But I don't think the superior officers will let them go to fight such a small number of pirates." Smoker glared darkly at the man. "Since when have I listened to my superior officer's opinions? Now go." He finished, scaring the man off to accomplish his task. As he stood alone in the street, he looked around before walking off on his own in thought. Naruto appeared back on the rooftop next to Soren and Nojiko. "Me and Crocodile had a nice little chat. I do have to say that he's way taller than I expected him to be though. Most masterminds like this are short little pieces of nothing." Nojiko blinked at him. "So what happened? Did you beat him up already?" Naruto shook his head. "I told you, I'm not fighting Crocodile, Luffy is. All I did was just point him in their general direction. That should get some fireworks started." Nojiko frowned while Soren glowered in the background, muttering about blonde bastards. "Naruto-kun, I really don't like this idea. What if they get hurt?" "Oh, they're all going to get hurt, that's for certain." Naruto shrugged carelessly. "It's a good experience for them. Now we need to get to Alubarna to make sure that this country doesn't go under in the case that they can't beat Crocodile and his goon squad. How in the air we supposed to pull that off, Uzumaki? Soren said. It took you an IA day to get here on foot by ourselves from the ships, how are they going to keep up with us? Naruto grinned. You just let me worry about that. Now go get Miss Valentine and I'll go get Johnny and Yosaku and stop them from kicking the Marines and the Billions S. Naruto grabbed onto Nojiko and took off along the rooftops while Soren went off his own way to search for Miss Valentine. It didn't take long for Naruto and Soren to corral their targets since Naruto was already aware of their positions due to the cage bunchen he had spread out around Rainbase, dispelling periodically around the people of interest to keep him posted on the situation. Naruto stood just outside of town with Nojiko, Johnny, and Yosaku in tow when Soren and Miss Valentine sauntered up. Naruto grinned amusedly at Miss Valentine, who had been conspicuous in her absence throughout everyone's stay in Rainbase. Oh dear, have a good time watching the panic unfold. Miss Valentine let out a laugh and smiled. It's more interesting to not be directly involved, you see. Naruto rolled his eyes. Says you. Soren's eye twitched in annoyance as one important aspect of their coming back together had not been addressed yet. Are we all forgetting that we have no way to get to Alubarna before the hits the fan? That got everyone aimed to look at Naruto expectantly. Yosaku voiced the concerns of everyone present. So how are we supposed to get to Alubarna, Naruto and Ikki? By the time we get there, normally everything will be all over. Naruto shook his head and grinned. I never showed you guys that I could do this, did I? Naruto bit his thumb and made a few hand seals. This is going to be fun. Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning jutsu. A puff of smoke surrounded Naruto's body, clearing out to reveal Naruto standing on the head of one of 6 brown toads twice his size. Say oh to the transport toads, you guys. Naruto took the silence and stunned looks on the faces of his friends as a victory for him. What's the matter, you guys? Haven't I been introducing myself as the Toad Sennin? Didn't you think that actually meant something? Nojiko pointed. You just made those things appear out of thin air. Naruto nodded. Yes, Noji-chan, we've established this already. I remember, I was here. Soren snapped out of it first after slapping himself and getting on one of the toads' backs. I'll say it again even though I was kind of joking the first time. What can't you do it? Naruto grinned at his bald ally. And I'll repeat myself. I don't know yet, you'll know when I do. Naruto looked at the rest of his crew. Well, get on. They're not going to hurt you or anything. I summoned them myself. They listened to me and helped me out. They remained still until Naruto rolled his eyes and moved swiftly behind Nojiko, picking her up and putting her on one of the toads. Nojiko was somewhat scared of the MIB amphibian, but quickly learned that Naruto was right and they wouldn't hurt her. Naruto smiled at her. You see. Now everyone get on so we can get moving. All of the others finally relented and got onto the backs of the toads per the blonde captain's orders. Naruto allowed his comrades to get themselves situated when a dispelling cage bunchen alerted Naruto to something of importance occurring elsewhere in the desert. It Luffy. Naruto grabbed the area between his eyes out of stress. Naruto hopped off of his toad and desummoned it. You guys go on ahead, I've got something to see. Miss Valentine, you know the way to Alubarna, right? Get everyone there and I'll catch up on my own later. Miss Valentine nodded but frowned. You're leaving again. A small smile came to her face. We just can't seem to keep you around, can we? Naruto shrugged. Hey, I appeared out of nowhere. You never know when I'm just gonna pop up out of nowhere, or disappear in the blink of an eye. You guys can handle things, and remember to stay low profile and out of trouble. This is the Straw Hats fight. With that, Naruto took off on foot back towards the city. Johnny pointed to the dust trail Naruto was leaving in his wake. He needs to stop doing that. It's a mission he took. Soren explained. He knows that just watching over Luffy all the time would get irksome for all of us, so he wants to make sure he can handle himself. That doesn't mean he's just going to let him die though. Now let's go, he'll catch up. Soren bounced on the toad's back and looked at it curiously. How do I make this stupid thing go? The toad took exception to being called stupid and began hopping and bucking with Soren on it before taking off in a hurry, the acid user yelling at the top of his lungs. Miss Valentine shook her head and cupped her hands around her mouth. Hey, that's the wrong way. We need to go east. Crocodile dropped a small hourgle at Luffy's feet as the straw hat-clad teen stared at him curiously. I'll give you 3 minutes. After that I won't have the time to play with you anymore. Any problems with that? Luffy stood ahead of him, ready to fight. Nope, that's fine with me. He ed his fist back. Gomu Gomu no pistol gum gum pistol. Luffy let off his rubber arm out in a punch, but Crocodile's body simply turned to sand and shifted out of the way. He reformed and came at Luffy with a swing of his golden hook, who bent over backwards to avoid the metal appendage. Luffy's leg extended into the air as he dodged, and he decided to use his own momentum for an attack. Gomu Gomu no stamp gum gum stamp. Luffy backbit and thrusted his leg out at Crocodile. However, when it hit him, his body turned to sand upon impact. Luffy looked shocked as his leg snapped back and he landed on his feet. Crocodile's body reformed again, with him seemingly not caring that he was in a fight at the moment. Let me tell you something important, Straw Hat. No matter what you do, you'll never, ever. Luffy didn't let him finish as he sent himself at Crocodile to attack again. Gomu Gomu no Gatling gum gum Gatling. Luffy launched rapid-fire fisticuffs at Crocodile, each punch busting right through his sandy body with violent intent. When the attack ended, however, once again Crocodile's body reformed. No worse for wear whatsoever, sand monster. Luffy shouted at him in anger, rushing to attack once again. Listen up, Straw Hat. Crocodile said lazily, these mosquito bite attacks are useless against me. Because you will never, ever. Luffy cut him off again, getting directly in his face with his arms pushed back as far as they could go. Gomu Gomu no bazooka gum gum bazooka. Luffy swung his arms forward and punched two twin holes through Crocodile's chest, blowing of sand out of the back. Luffy was not deterred by the now standard result of his attacks and swung his leg as high into the air as he could throw it before bringing it down. Gomu Gomu no Ono gum gum axe. Luffy's brutal axe kick utterly pulverized Crocodile's body, leaving the boy alone and confused in the desert. Did I crush you, stupid sand gator? Luffy shouted as he stomped at the sand. I told you already that none of that would work. Crocodile said as he appeared behind Luffy out of nowhere. Luffy turned around enraged. You hole. Crocodile sighed. No matter how hard you fight, Rubber Man, you will never defeat. He finished with a mumble when Luffy's fist burst through his face once more. Luffy jumped back. Defeat. What the have you been trying to say? Crocodile stared at Luffy with murder in his eyes. Why don't we end the games now, Straw Hat Luffy? Luffy glared out at him. I've been fighting seriously the whole time. His thoughts were somewhat panicked. I can't hit him. He keeps dissolving. Crocodile smirked as he put his hand back. You and I are in two completely different leagues. Desato Supada, Desert Spada. Crocodile threw his hand forward, sending an attack rushing at Luffy through the sand. Upon seeing the move split a rock right down the middle, Luffy cartwheeled out of the way as it was in his best interests to move aside and ended up landing on his head. Ouch. Crocodile grinned. You sure wouldn't have been saying ouch if it had hit you. He noticed Luffy marveling at the miv rip in the desert that he had just caused. Depending on how you use and train devil fruit powers, they can be very strong in battle. But I'm not like the other idiots who are just content with having the power. I've honed mine to perfection. Desato Girasole, Desert Sunflower. Crocodile stabbed his hand into the ground and caused a pit of quicksand to form that started ing Luffy in. You'll wish you never stood up to me. Luffy started trying to outrun the effect of the sand pit while Crocodile watched in amusement. Quicksand is a very convenient coffin, no grave needed. There's no living being that can stand toe to toe with me in the desert. Crocodile paused for a moment as he felt himself blasted with a feeling of ill intent, like a blonde wanted to strangle him or something, but he quickly put that aside to watch Luffy struggle. You're going down. Luffy threw his hands high into the air as he ran against the sand pit. Gomu Gomu no bazooka gum gum bazooka. Luffy used the momentum to throw his hands down and push himself up out of the pit and into the air, where he turned his fingers into a clasped net. If I can't hit you, I'll capture you. Gomu Gomu no Amy gum gum net. Luffy stretched his fingers around Crocodile in the form of a net. Crocodile once again simply turned to sand and drifted through it. Don't you get it? Take a hint, it's impossible for you. Gomu Gomu no Muchi gum gum whip. Crocodile found his sandy body cut in half by a long kick by Luffy, repeating the same old moves again. Luffy fell from the air right into the range of a strike from Crocodile, Barchant crescent-shaped dune. Crocodile swung his right arm and ended up hitting Luffy's. As Luffy hit the ground, he looked at his arm in horror. My arm. Gah. My arm turned into a mummy. Luffy's arm under the bicep was shriveled and dead looking. Crocodile has a pleased look on his face, because it's sand I ed the water out of your arm. Maybe I should kill you by ing the water out of your entire body, to give you a little taste of the desert. Luffy got a look of revelation, that's it. Luffy pulled out a small barrel and began drinking water. Crocodile scoffed, ridiculous. No it isn't. Luffy snapped at him, the old guy in Yuba spent all night digging up this water. You want to know what he said? Yuba will never be defeated by sand. Gomu Gomu. Crocodile rolled his eyes, are you still trying this? Luffy launched himself at Crocodile and bit his head off, getting a sandy mouthful. No baku baku, gum gum chomp chomp. Enough bull. Crocodile roared as he burst out of Luffy's mouth, prepare to die, along with the fertile soil of Yuba. Luffy spit out the leftover sand in his mouth and looked at Crocodile in confusion, huh? He soon got an elaboration from Crocodile, your 3 minutes are up. I told you I didn't have time to play with you. Sable's sandstorm. Crocodile formed a twister out of sand that quickly overwhelmed Luffy, the sand is nice and dry today. He chuckled in a taunting manner, alright Straw Hat. The prevailing winds here are always north to south. If the sandstorm I've just spawned rides that wind and travels south once it's mature, where do you think it will hit when it's nice and big? South. Luffy questioned. Yuba. Crocodile said cruelly. Luffy launched forward and grabbed onto Crocodile's shoulders, what the are you doing? That old guy has nothing to do with you. Luffy broke off and started chasing after the sandstorm, stop you. Crocodile laughed, once this wind picks up even I won't be able to stop it. Luffy grabbed onto Crocodile and started yelling in his face, taking all of the dark humor he was feeling out of the equation, stop it no. Luffy stopped yelling after being stabbed with Crocodile's hook. Crocodile lifted him off of the ground by the hook, who in the do you think I am? There are plenty of rookies who are all talk, just like you Straw Hat Luffy. The Grand Line is full of them. He looked at the sandstorm he had made, Yuba will die. This last sandstorm will ensure it. It will set the rebels over the edge and thus the archaic love for others in this country is what will destroy it in the end. Same for you Straw Hat. You would have lived longer if you hadn't sickbed to your weaker emotions. Water, not even the water will help you. Luffy reached up and grabbed Crocodile's arm weakly around the hook, eliciting some surprise from the man, you're still alive. He threw Luffy off of the hook and let him sink into the sand pit. Luffy clutched at his wound and spit up blood, you must be in quite some pain. Don't worry it will all be over soon. He laughed at Luffy's anguish as he watched him sink beneath the sand. He turned around when Luffy's body disappeared from sight, what a waste of my time. After Crocodile was long gone, Naruto appeared on the battlefield shaking his head, stupid Cage Bunshin, you couldn't dispel earlier and tell me this was happening. Naruto walked over to the sand pit and crouched down at the edge of it. Suddenly Luffy's head burst above the bottom of the pit, meaaaaat. Naruto jumped back in shock, ah holy. Luffy zombie. Naruto blinked and calmed down, oh wait, he said, meaaaaat. Not, braaains. Naruto shrugged his shoulders, okay, he's alive. Now how do I get him out of there without sinking myself? Suddenly Luffy's body was lifted from the pit by a multitude of hands and threw him at Naruto, who abruptly tossed the wounded rubber man off of him and stood up angrily, who's the dead mother that did that? Well that's a very warm welcome Mr. Uzumaki. Naruto turned to see Nico Robin smiling confidently at him, and here I thought you and I were friends. Naruto smirked, well you might as well be. For some reason a lot of my friends become my friends after they try to kill me, and you're way wouter than the majority of them that have tried, therefore you already have your foot in the door so to speak. As nice as it is to see you doing, whatever it is you're planning to do. Robin said, I came for him. Naruto frowned, I can't let you kill him Robin-chan, don't try it. Robin shook her head and walked over to Luffy's downed form, I'm not here to kill him. Luffy weakly looked up at her, thank you. She simply stared down at him, all semblance of a smile gone from her face, why do you fight? She asked, confusing Luffy, all of you who carry the name, D. Luffy simply coughed on the ground, still looking up at her. Robin used her power to form a hand to throw Luffy's hat over to her, that seems to be a pointless question. I've found you. Naruto simply stood off to the side, watching intently, D. Isn't that just a stupid initial? What the does that have to do with anything? Come to think of it, what does it even stand for? The attention of both Naruto and Robin was taken by a man in a brown star-covered turban with 2 purple lines running down his face from his eyes. He wore a long white robe with brown stars on it. Robin smirked upon seeing him. "Oh, you're awake. What happened to Bibi-sama?" he questioned as he limped closer with a sword in his hand. "Now that I understand the nature of your powers, I won't be beaten so easily." Robin turned and started walking away. "Oh, stop it. Don't get yourself any more injured than you already are. This is actually perfect timing. Why don't you save that boy? He's the brave and gallant knight that escorted your princess safely here. The princess is fine, she's on the way to Alubarna at the moment. I don't know what will happen, but you know the state that this country is in." The new arrival looked down at that brandishing of truth. "Huh." Luffy grabbed onto his robe. "Meat," he said firmly. Naruto stared down at Luffy and then at the crocodile with a banana growth on its nose and tail that Nico Robin was using to transport herself to Alubarna. "Luffy, I'm going to give you a second swing at this. I'm going to Alubarna as we speak, and I'm probably going to beat you there by a lot. I'm not going to say that you can win if you fight him again, but if I find him first and it looks like it's all going downhill even more, I'm going to beat his myself." Naruto smirked down at him when he felt Luffy's eyes snap to him from on the ground. "All you have to do is get up and beat him first. It's that simple, just get up, cross the desert to Alubarna, and get your win back. Good luck." Naruto then burst into smoke, leaving not a trace of his presence behind. With foxhound pirates, these things are fast. Johnny whooped in appreciation while his sword-using partner was shouting in joy while on his own toad. "Naruto Aniki is awesome." Miss Valentine started counting on her fingers. "So he can walk on the surface of anything, water included, he can move faster than anyone I've ever seen, he can jump 50 feet in the air without a running start, he can make countless copies of himself, he make tornadoes, tidal waves, and fireballs, he has a living sword that eats his energy and moves around on its own, and he can call these toads out whenever he wants." She sighed. "Is there anything I'm missing about this?" Nojiko sweet-dropped. "I'm sure that there always is. I think he gets off on the expressions on our faces whenever he does something else that should be impossible." Soren smirked. "I'm going to stop considering that he can't do everything. Then he won't be able to catch me off guard with this crap anymore." "Yo!" Yosaku called out. "We're there, and it looks like there are guards at the gates. How are we getting in?" The toads couldn't speak, but they all got huge grins on their faces before they jumped straight over the walls of the city, taking all of the foxhound pirates with them. The toads stopped on the rooftops inside of the walls and let them all off. Nojiko patted the one she had ridden gratefully. "Thank you very much. That was quick." The toads all nodded before dispelling in a cloud of smoke. Soren scratched his head. "So now what? Uzumaki said not to do anything. Do we just observe or something?" Nojiko shook her head. "No way, I'm finding my sister. She's definitely here if we all are. Maybe I can help her out." Johnny and Yosaku looked at each other and nodded. "We're going to find Zoro and Iki. Maybe we can see how much stronger he's gotten since we last saw him fight." Soren's jaw dropped as Johnny and Yosaku jumped off the roof and started running down the streets searching for Zoro while Nojiko started hopping the closely positioned rooftops to look for Nami. Soren growled and yelled, Uzumaki's going to kick my when he finds out this happened, and then I'm going to kick your ass because he kicked my." He palmed his face and looked over at Miss Valentine, who was simply standing there with her umbrella shut, looking at him amusedly. "Oh, what? Are you going to go off and jump in the fighting too?" Miss Valentine laughed. "No way. I'm not fighting anyone here, not while Crocodile can still identify and kill me. I'm just going to be watching the whole thing as it happens. I would fly up above the city and watch from there, but they would see me and shoot me from there if I did, so I'm stuck with you for the time being, tough guy." "Wonderful." Soren deadpanned. "Let's go somewhere good to watch this stuff unfold. A good view of the whole city, you know." Miss Valentine grinned at him. "Follow me then," she said, running across the roof and jumping across the street with the help of her parasol allowing her to float, laughing as she left Soren in her dust. "Oi!" Soren shouted. "Get back here." He got a running start and cleared the street below before following Miss Valentine. "I hate the people around me so much. with Nojiko. Nojiko sat down on a rooftop and looked around searching for Nami. Man, this city is totally cleared out. There's not a soul in this town other than the soldiers I keep seeing all over the place. It's so creepy. She sighed and looked up at the sun beating down on her. So this rebellion is really going to happen. She stood up and stretched. Okay, now where's my troublesome sister? As she looked around, something in her head immediately told her to duck, and from training with Naruto she learned that when she got that certain feeling she had better act on it or bad things would happen to her. It was a good thing she did too, since upon her body hitting the roof she saw a set of shuriken fly over her head. Nojiko stood back up and drew a pistol from beneath her desert cloak, looking around for whoever had just thrown those. She had the instinct to say Naruto's name, but the way they had flown, the speed at which they were thrown, and the sound of them cutting through the air showed her that they were absolutely real, and Naruto never threw real weapons at her like that. Nojiko narrowed her eyes. Ninja wannabe, Naruto-kun would sleepwalk all over you if he was here. She then sighed, but he's not here, I'm here. And that means I have to kick your. She looked around tensely. I just have to find you first. And that shouldn't be too hard. Her response was another set of shuriken coming at her. Nojiko scoffed and rolled out of the way before firing her pistol in the direction they came from. Nojiko's bullet flew towards the tile on another rooftop. However, a sheet of similar pattern and color was thrown off to reveal a woman with short red hair, a gray ninja gi, gray pants, and gray sandals, moving to dodge. Nojiko simply stared at the girl. And you are? She asked. The woman smirked. Miss Thursday. My idiot partner Mr. the 11th of May have gotten himself killed, but I am more than enough to make up for that fool's absence. Nojiko spun her pistol on her finger. Right, I don't think you'll just let me be and go away. I'm looking for someone, and I'm not really supposed to get into a fight. Miss Thursday pulled up a drawing of Nojiko. You were the one that beat the unluckies, right? You're a threat, and you just so happen to be here just as Operation Utopia is starting. I can't let you go. You have to die, girly. Nojiko said disinterestedly. Let me respond to that in the following manner. Nojiko immediately fired her pistol in the blink of an eye, forcing Miss Thursday to duck aside and return fire with a shuriken. Nojiko forced her to miss. You might as well quit. My captain is so much better than you, it's not even funny. I really don't want to shoot you. Too much of a bleeding heart to go through with it. Miss Thursday taunted. That's very unfortunate for you. Nojiko smirked. No, not really. I just don't want to waste my ammunition on you. It's purely economical, you see. The female ninja got a tick mark on her head. Economical this. She said as she jumped over to Nojiko's rooftop and attempted a high kick that Nojiko avoided. Stop dodging me. Nojiko saw her coming in for a low sweep and used a back handspring to avoid the second kick. Wow, Naruto-kun was right. All of that trying to dodge him made this child's play. Compared to him, she's moving in slow motion. Nojiko raised her pistol and fired, but Miss Thursday threw down a smoke bomb and vanished before the bullet made contact. Nojiko hardened her senses in an attempt to find her again when Miss Thursday's laughter rang out around her. You have no idea how to handle yourself in a battle against a warrior of the shadows, do you? Nojiko had a sweat drop on her head as Miss Thursday kept speaking. Witness the power of a true ninja. Her appearance popped up all over the place directly around Nojiko. You cannot find the real me, can you? Nojiko's sweat drop grew more pronounced. Instead of setting this up, why didn't you set traps or something before I even got here? Or how about instead of hiding to activate this, you just kill me? Am I making sense or am I just not getting it? Miss Thursday growled. Big talk from a little girl. If you are so certain of yourself, then find me. She said with a smirk. Nojiko smiled pleasantly, a little too pleasantly, with pleasure. She threw off her cloak to reveal her belly dancer clothing and all of her weapons on her person. Her rifle and swaugen were strapped across her back. She had a belt with 5 pistols on it around her waist and a small grenade between each pistol on her belt. On the back part of the belt was a pouch to hold her ammunition. Nojiko pulled the swaugen off of her back and a pistol from her belt in the other hand. Trying to take advantage of her technique, Miss Thursday threw a kunai at Nojiko, who dodged it effortlessly, spun in a circle and took swaus at each image of Miss Thursday, emptying her guns and revealing that they were mirrors set up to disorient her. Hinakuru Canaria, spinning canary. Miss Thursday was left unharmed, but staring at a content Nojiko, who placed the swaugen on her back once more. How did you? Naruto-kun's better than you. When he did that he used actual clones, and they actually moved, and threw stuff at me. She shivered involuntarily. I beat him up and told him never to throw another real weapon at me again. But the point is, you can't beat me like this. She holstered her pistol and pulled out 2 more with a grin on her face. Now dance for me. Nojiko swung at Miss Thursday's feet, making the woman hop around on each toe. When she wasted her 3 swings with each pistol, she holstered them and pulled out another. By the time Nojiko had used all of her pistols, Miss Thursday was hunched over, breathing heavily, and now you lose. She slung her swaugen off of her back and quickly reloaded it before shooting at the roof in front of Miss Thursday, making it cave in and drop her inside of the building. Peering inside the hole she had just made, she found Miss Thursday knocked out cold and covered in the debris from the hole she had just fallen through. Nojiko reloaded her swaugen and placed it on her back with her rifle. Well, that worked out just fine. At least Nami can't say she won a fight like that, right? She finished with a small giggle. With Johnny and Yosaku, Zoro and Ikki. Both men yelled at the tops of their lungs as they ran through the streets. Yosaku turned to Johnny. Where the could he be? As a matter of fact, where is everyone else? Didn't we tell them to follow us? Johnny shook his head. No, we didn't, we just left. You think they'll be alright without us? Yosaku paled. I'm more worried about us. What if we run into any of those Baroque works creeps? We'll be eaten alive. Johnny stopped running and grabbed Yosaku by his collar, pulling him close to face him. Now what kind of attitude is that? You just say we're going to get our ass kicked just like that. We haven't even fought anyone yet, so how can you just go and say that? We've been training hard, haven't we? Yosaku nodded and Johnny gave him a shake. So get yourself together. If we end up in a fight, we end up in a fight, and that will be that. Yosaku gulped. But what if we lose? Naruto Aniki isn't here to get us out of trouble like he was against Soren, he only wanted Aniki. If someone attacks us and beats us now, they'll kill us. Johnny smirked as the sun reflected off of his sungles. Then we die. All we have to do is not lose, right? You should listen to your friend. A voice said from further down the street. Right. It won't matter how much you've trained if you still think you're weak at heart. Said a female voice from the same direction. Johnny and Yosaku got tick marks on their heads and turned towards them. Who the asked you? They said simultaneously. Can't you see this is a private conversation here? Butt out. The man that had spoken wore Greek armor. Complete with the bronze helmet that covered his entire head, only leaving some of his face exposed, the bronze torso plating with the tells at the bottom that resembled a skirt, the large shield, the spear in his hand and the short sword on his waist, the long greaves on his legs and the sandals. The female of the group had long black hair and wore the same thing minus the helmet and in more of a rustic red color. Johnny and Yosaku stared at them for a moment before the headgear-clad swordsman of the pair pointed at them lamely. Who in the air you two supposed to be? The man smirked cruelly. I suppose you can call us Mr. 10 and Miss Tuesday. Johnny and Yosaku looked at each other, one in excitement and the other in concern. Johnny ducked low into his stance to draw his uchigatana. This is actually perfect timing. You guys can prove to my friend here that we're not as bad as he makes us out to be. Miss Tuesday chuckled and pointed her spear at them both. We'll see about that, boys. Neither of you look to be much. Yosaku laughed nervously as he drew his nodashi from his back. Yeah, we get that a lot. Mr. 10 stabbed his spear into the ground and drew his short sword and pointed it at the swordsman. For those about to die we salute. He was cut off and forced to block when Johnny appeared in front of him and fed his blade from the sheath to slash at his face. Johnny sneered at him as they clashed steel. Shut up and fight. If you're going to get in our way, we'll just have to move you out of the path, won't we? Miss Tuesday made to stab at Johnny with her spear while he was sidetracked by Mr. 10, but Yosaku cut her spear in half, stopping her from attacking. You're not going to stab my buddy while I'm here. She smirked and drew her own short sword. You really think you can beat us? You were nearly shaking in your boots a second ago. Where did all of this confidence come from? Yosaku looked back at Johnny, who was fending off attacks from Mr. 10's short sword. Johnny is right. Naruto Aniki has been training us hard and he never would have put us in this kind of trouble if we weren't ready for it. We're not losing. Johnny hopped back out of the way of a vertical slash from Mr. 10 before retaliating with a backslash that hit Mr. 10 in the chest and knocked him backwards, leaving a mark on his bronze armor. Meanwhile, Yosaku had taken to attacking Miss Tuesday, and had almost ended up dislocating her shoulder when she was forced to block an overhead swing from his weapon. The two Baroque Works members joined back together, standing back to back and pointing their swords at Johnny and Yosaku. Mr. Ten glared at Johnny. "You're a little gnat, nearly impossible to hit and annoying to boot." Miss Tuesday followed up about Yosaku. "You're a complete brute, nothing but strength behind your attacks. It's clear that neither of you have any real formal training to speak of. All you do is rely on your physical attributes to beat your enemies." Johnny chuckled. "That's actually really accurate. I'm the speed and he's the muscle, and while we may not know anything better than the basics, we're working on that." Yosaku smirked. "It's still enough to beat you both up and down the street." Mr. Ten and Miss Tuesday took offense to that and linked arms before spinning rapidly in a circle at Johnny and Yosaku until they became a blur. "Take this." Kaiden no Hon, rotating phalanx. Yosaku lifted his sword and blocked the attack, sliding back as the combination attack of Mr. Ten and Miss Tuesday repeatedly bashed against his blade. Johnny noticed Yosaku sliding back and pushed against his back to help him keep his ground. Mr. Ten and Miss Tuesday finally ended the attack, bouncing off of Yosaku's sword and standing facing both swordsmen once more. Yosaku stood in a ready stance with cuts all over his forearms from blocking the attack. "Johnny. I'm really pissed off now." Johnny stood ready to fight as well, behind his partner. "Well, what are you going to do about it?" "The new move," Yosaku suggested, looking over his shoulder questioningly. He got a grin on his face when he saw Johnny nod in agreement. "All right then." Yosaku jumped behind Johnny, who held his sword over his back. "You'd better make this work." Johnny glared back at him. "Just do your part and we'll work it out from there." Yosaku put his sword as far back as he could before swinging it forward full force, sending Johnny flying towards Mr. Ten and Miss Tuesday. Both of them split apart and moved aside, forcing him to miss and head towards a wall, but Johnny sprung off of the wall with his feet and headed back towards them with more momentum than before. They moved again and he sprung off of the road, this time before springing off another wall, gaining stored energy the entire time. Soon he resembled a ping-pong ball with the way he was bouncing off of the walls and the ground, seeking out his enemies for attack. Eventually he caught Mr. Ten off guard and cut him with a single slash, moving at blinding speed. Hanakaru IQ rebound impact. Mr. Ten dropped to the ground motionless after a spray of blood came from his body. He had cut through the armor from the speed and kinetic energy generated from the move. Johnny ended up losing his footing and tumbling head over heels into a wall, grunting in pain as he found himself unable to stand back up. That move wrecks my knees. It generates too much force for my legs to take." He breathed heavily as he held his legs painfully. Miss Tuesday watched her partner hit the ground after Johnny's attack and glared at Yosaku. "I'll kill you both for this. Do you hear me?" She charged Yosaku with her sword set to run him straight through. Yosaku shut his eyes for a moment. "If something like that happened to my buddy, I would feel the same way. But still," he lifted his sword and batted the flat of it against the nearby building 3 hard times, getting a loud echoing clang before a steady vibration sounded out from his blade. Miss Tuesday ran at him, intent to kill when he swung his sword horizontally, forcing her to block. However, his sword was still vibrating and producing the humming noise, and its effects were seen when he cut straight through her sword and armor, causing her to fly back into a building, leaving behind a hole in the wall. Shinto Sei no Ryukan concussive hound. She lay in the hole bleeding from her wound with no life in her eyes. Yosaku sheathed his sword and looked down at his hands that were violently shaking uncontrollably. "I guess this still messes up all of the bones in my hands to use." Johnny moved himself into a sitting position against the wall, still unable to walk and smirking at his friend. "I told you we'd win." He groaned and rubbed his legs. "I'm too hurt for the victory dance." With Soren and Miss Valentine, "Where the are we going?" Soren asked as he continued to jump from rooftop to follow the low-floating Miss Valentine. "We could be lost for all I know." "How do you even know where we're going?" Miss Valentine looked down with a smile. "I was an officer agent for Baroque Works. One of our jobs other than laying low and getting money for funding the group was to spread lies and rumors about the king in Alabasta, so you can say that I kind of contributed to the situation right now, but other than that we had to know the layout of the city for this operation. I know the best place in town to get a view of everything." Soren looked up at her as he ran. "So why aren't we fighting the other officer agents then?" I would suspect that you would know something about them, wouldn't you? Miss Valentine laughed before responding, no, not at all. No one knew anything about anyone else in the group among the officer agents, number pairs 5 to 0. It was supposed to stay a secret. All I know is that everyone above Mr. 5's number are undoubtedly stronger than me. Her good mood faded. If one of them finds me and recognizes me, all I would be able to do would be to run. They would destroy me in a straight fight. No, they wouldn't. Soren said confidently. Uzumaki would never let that happen, and even though he's not here, I'm sure I'm more than enough to handle anyone in Baroque Works. I'm still pissed that Uzumaki told me to lay off of Crocodile though. I really wanted to fight a Shichibukai to see how I stack up on their level. The Ed Mutts of the sea. Miss Valentine looked at him strangely upon hearing the hatred in his voice for the Shichibukai. Who would want to go out of their way to fight one of them, and why? Just to test their own strength. That's suicidal, even for someone on this crew. The two kept moving along until a loud clang noise shook the building Soren was running on, almost knocking him over and forcing him to stumble to keep his balance. What the? Miss Valentine floated around the building to get a look and frowned at what she saw. Soren, get off of the building and get over here. Soren listened and jumped off of the roof of the shaky building just as it was to collapse. He landed in the street just as it gave way and covered his eyes as dust and debris flew about. What the was that? Soren asked to Miss Valentine, who had landed right next to him. She had her parasol up to shield her from the dust and debris coming at them. I don't know. All I know is what I saw doing it. Well, what, or should I say who was it? Soren responded. The dust cleared to reveal a towering man at least twice Soren's size, covered head to toe in thick, red medieval armor with a V on his chest. The helmet had a face shield covering his features from view. He also had a Miv war hammer, axe in his hands. So who the is this guy and why do I care? Soren asked, getting a shrug of confusion from Miss Valentine. A feminine voice sounded out from the wreckage that the strange man emerged from. We're the demolition experts of Baroque Works. You can just call us Mr. 5 and Miss Mother's Day. That got Soren and Miss Valentine blinking in confusion before the bubbly blonde woman started laughing so hard she had to wipe a tear from her eyes, so they promoted one of the Frontier agents to pick up the slack after what happened at Whiskey Peak. We don't have anything to worry about, Soren, they're way weaker than me. The gap between Frontier and officer agents is Miv. Soren smirked, which got an angry response out of the female who came out and stood aside the new Mr. 5. She had silver hair tied in a messy ponytail, cruel brown eyes and a teardrop mark on her face. She wore a white bodysuit and black platform heels, and how would you know that we're weaker than you? The number pairs 5 and up are officer agents, the elites. I know. Miss Valentine said before her smile became somewhat malicious. I used to be in the old number 5 pair. And I really don't like being replaced. That caused Miss Mother's Day to stare at her in shock. You're Miss Valentine. But you're supposed to be marked for death when you fail your missions. No one took care of you. Miss Valentine shook her head. They tried. But they ran into a walking maelstrom when they did, and now I'm free and don't have to deal with this group anymore. Now get out of our way. You're just glorified Frontier agents that got called up to fill a slot. We were the Mr. 6 pair before you got yourself beaten. Miss Mother's Day grit her teeth in anger before smirking. Mr. 5, show her exactly how above you she really is. Mr. 5 lifted his hammer above his head and smashed it onto the ground, causing a fissure in the earth towards Soren and Miss Valentine. Miss Valentine jumped into the air and floated up high, laughing the entire time. It's all yours, Soren. Soren sat perched on an awning overhanging off of a building as he glared up at Miss Valentine. Gee, thanks, I appreciate it so much. He stood up straight and cracked his neck. All right. Let's do this then. Soren jumped back onto the ground and flexed his fingers. Well, what are you waiting for? A written invitation. Miss Mother's Day revealed 2 hidden blades on her wrists and came at Soren, slashing at his face and neck with her weapons. Soren caught her by her wrists and sighed. Got anything better than that? Miss Mother's Day smirked and kicked the heel of her foot on the ground to reveal a blade in the front of her platform heels that she used in a rising kick coming right up the middle that Soren had to let go of her to avoid. Soren looked at her frightfully and grabbed his groin before pointing a shaky finger at her. Holy. Don't do that. That was way too close. While he had been focused on Miss Mother's Day, the new Mr. 5 came up behind him with his hammer held in front of him in a stabbing motion with the top heavy part facing the ground, Nensho Tetsui, burning iron hammer. He tried to smash Soren with the hammer, but he leapt out of the way in time for the attack to miss. The ground-formed spider web pattern cracks around his body as the pavement crumbled from the force of the attack. Soren jumped out of the range of his attack and ended up being engaged by Miss Mother's Day and her multiple blades once more, as she had now opened up another one on her other foot to go along with the other 3 she had already been using. Soren simply kept dodging while keeping an eye on Mr. 5, who stood out of the way as still as a statue. Miss Mother's Day took advantage of his flighty attention and covered her mouth with her hands before spitting a substance in Soren's face. She retreated back to Mr. 5's side and looked at Soren with a smug, satisfied look on her face. How do you like that? If you're lucky, maybe your eyes won't be useless forever, not that it will matter after we kill you. Oh, me covering my eyes was more of a reflex than anything, he said, completely calm as he moved his hand to reveal no adverse effects from whatever she had used on him. You can't use stuff like that on me, it won't work. Why the not? Miss Mother's Day roared. That was acid. Soren gave her a dry look before hawking a loogie across the area at Mr. 5 Feet Hammer. A sizzling noise alerted them both that the metal of his hammer was falling apart. Miss Mother's Day looked at Soren in shock as he simply smirked at her. No, it wasn't. That was acid. Soren's eyes drifted up as he continued to smirk. Miss Mother's Day and Mr. 5 looked up to see Miss Valentine falling towards them. The female member was able to move, but with his heavy armor Mr. 5 was not. Hisatsu, 10,000 kilo guillotine, sure kill. 10,000 kilo guillotine. Miss Valentine dropped a single leg down on Mr. 5's torso, leaving a MIV crater where she landed and utterly crushing his armor like a tin can and his body at the middle. She floated out of the crater she made, looking at Miss Mother's Day with a smile. The old Mr. 5 would have seen that coming and blown me to bits before I had even gotten close. Like I said, even the level of skill between just one true number pair separating the officer agents and frontier agents is significant. Miss Mother's Day paled at the sight of her partner being effortlessly killed by Miss Valentine and turned to run only to come face to face with Soren. And where do you think you're going? You started this, we're finishing it. She swung a blade at Soren out of surprise and fear and ended up getting ducked and back leg swept by Soren, who spun back around and hit her with a falling palm strike right to her chest. Iora Qkate Stone Tiger Break. The resulting hit ended up cracking the ground beneath her from the force of the strike as her eyes rolled back into her head and blood came from her mouth. Miss Valentine walked over and looked down at her. I told you I didn't like being replaced. Dusting off his hands, Soren looked down at the deceased woman without a care. Well, now your replacement needs a replacement. She laughed brightly. Maybe I can get back in now. Soren gave Miss Valentine a serious look before she laughed even harder. Yeah, right. You actually believe that? With Baroque works, I've got a real team to work with now. Vivi had to watch as his childhood friend and leader of the rebel forces, Koza, was cut down as he stood between the rebel and imperial forces, pleading for them to stop fighting. This led to the outraged rebels to begin the battle against the king's forces. She tried yelling for them to stop, trying to yell down to them from where she was that Crocodile had been behind everything, but the man in question had conjured a sandstorm to drown out her voice amid the chaos of battle. She sat watching helplessly in tears. Please stop. Robin stood nearby, a captive king cobra, watching the events unfold. It's too bad your voice won't reach them. Such a lively battle, isn't it, little girl? Cobra saw Crocodile walking closer to Vivi, who was still too sidetracked by watching her people fight. Vivi, get away from him. Run. She stood up to face him instead of running away as instructed. This sandstorm is your doing. An arrogant smirk was her only response. As long as I can stop the cannon in 15 minutes, I can reduce the amount of casualties. Crocodile's smirk faded. You stop the uprising this way. You can stop the uprising that way. He reached out speedily and wrapped his hand around her neck. Wake up, princess. Your dream isn't realistic and this is reality. Dreams are only something that the powerful can bring into reality. Tears started streaming from Vivi's eyes. Even if it's not realistic, I don't care. You bastards just wouldn't understand. I'm the princess of this nation. For this country I would. Crocodile cut her off. 15 minutes until the cannon goes off. The reinforcements for the rebellion will be arriving soon. Your fate is sealed along with the blast area. He held Vivi out over the edge of their elevated position. If you had told the loyalists about the blast, you would have caused chaos, but you would have saved thousands of lives. Crocodile. Stop it now. King Cobra roared from his area in captivity. You thought you could save everyone. Crocodile chuckled, so in the end you lead everyone to their deaths. From now on no one will know any better. You worked for me for 2 years and for that I thank you, but in the end you never had a choice at all. Whether saving the country or rebelling, whichever boring ideal you choose to fight for, either one would result in more death, so let me tell you, you cannot save this country. With that he dropped Vivi over the edge. Crocodile. A shout from the sky of a voice that he thought he had finished off attracted Crocodile's attention, the Ing Straw Hat Kid. Luffy was riding on a Mib Falcon, coming right towards the palace. It took him long enough to show up. Vivi blinked in surprise as she realized she was no longer falling. She looked up to find herself in the arms of a grinning Naruto sticking to the wall with his feet. If he didn't show by the time I caught you and put you somewhere safe I was going to kick crocodiles myself, but then again the hero always shows up at the last second. Naruto jumped down to the base level of the palace. Vivi sniffled in his arms. The palace is going to be bombed, there isn't any time left. Everyone is going to die and no one can even hear me. If this keeps up the country will. It'll be okay. Naruto yured her. He looked up with a smirk. Luffy won't let Crocodile win, and no one is going to let that hole blow up your people. What? Naruto turned around with Vivi still in his arms to find Chopper there, looking at him in shock. Luffy's still alive. Naruto grinned. Yep, he's up there about to kick the crap out of Crocodile. Usopp was bandaged like a mummy from his injuries, see? I knew it. Sanji shook his head as he walked up too. Does that look like the face of someone who knew it? Usopp. Nami roared as she hit him in the back with her new Kleem attacked staff. Who asked you to make me a party toy to fight with? She dropped a heavily wounded Zoro who stood angrily. Oh whatever, you're fine. Usopp looked at her weakly, but it worked just fine. Nami pointed at him, I'll kick you later. Naruto looked at the Straw Hat crew with a smile on his face as he set Vivi down. Right, well since you're here there's no need for me to butt in. I'm going to go back up Luffy if he needs it. Keep an eye out for my crew, they should be out and about around the town somewhere if they aren't on their way here already. Vivi only broke her grip from around Naruto's neck with a little effort from him. Luffy launched himself up at Crocodile who simply stood in place, so you want to be impaled again do you? No matter how many times you try Straw Hat, you still can't hit me. Luffy kept flying towards him and unleashed a wicked left hand that caught Crocodile right in the jaw, forcing him to spit blood from the force of the hit and sending him flying. Naruto grinned at the sight of seeing Crocodile finally take a punch. Oh yeah, I'm so there. He channeled chakra to his feet and ran back up to where Luffy was fighting Crocodile. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.